Redspin Sports. Me and Nate were joined by Justin, Nate Wallace. We were talking about when we went to the New York Jets versus the Jacksonville Jaguar game. I don't remember what year it was, Nate.
2015. 2015.
2015. Um, and all those Jets fans, there was like two or three older white Jets fans who kept asking me if I knew where the weed was.
Oh man, yeah. I wonder why they would ask you, man.
Yeah, and I'm just like, it's because of my hair. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they are like Wall Street Jets fans too. The people
Yeah,
that were at that
they would
tailgate
come up
party.
to me like, "Do you have any?" I'm just like, "No, I
You're like,
don't.
oh look,
I had some
man.
earlier."
Yo,
But
yeah, the build on that,
Not now.
yo, Craig Carton, who's like the build on your point, Mike, like who's the douchebag who just got out of prison, because he was had a gambling problem, so then he started like having to like, rip people off and stuff because he like got in over his head, and was like paying debts off with other money he was getting from other people to try to like get money for like I'm gonna win this bet for parlay, and then I'm gonna use that to pay back the other debts, and then it all flipped up. So he ended up going to prison. He was on the Boomer Esiason show in New York. Like there was like the Boomer and Carton show in the morning, and he's like his level of intelligence, like his brain is like the size of like I don't know how small like my little fingers can get, but it's really 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 tiny. And I'll never forget that. Like sometimes like a few years ago, I remember hearing him one time, and he was talking about like how something about like the Israeli baseball team and just like how inspiring it is, like, to see these guys like playing, how they like overcame the Holocaust. I'm like, dude, these guys aren't even from even Israel, man. Like they got like dudes from California like on this team. You're like the dumbest motherfucker, dumbest dude, man. Holy shit. But anyways, the whole thing is that like this guy Carton like goes to prison with that stuff. Then he's out here recently on the radio, and it was 420, and he's sitting there being, "Jamming, yeah, got the beat." He's like, "Bob, it reminds me of being in Jamaica, mom, with my friends. Like, we were smoking the ganja with like the guy, about the cab driver, and oh man, life is good." I'm like, dude, you're totally like whatever the whole Rasta stuff, but like, just God, to think that that's like, and of course. The only people that listen to this stuff, I guess, like are reactionaries, and then me when I happen to be as a sports fan who's helpless. And right now, I'm driving an old car right now until I get this new one. I don't have any kind of like Bluetooth setup, so I've been listening to way too much because there's nothing really I want to listen to on the radio that's just like on FM AM radio other than just like if I'm just in the car for 15, 20 minutes, I'm just gonna put it on sports radio. Really, it's just maybe WBAI, which is like the local listener funded station, but damn, man, holy crap, it just really reminds you of what we're up against in terms of the struggle, in terms of there's a lot of those yahoos out there, man. And damn, you see how some Jets people fans. hate you see how, and you really it's like if I went to a high school and like those were the quote unquote sports kids, you can really see like where the genesis of like certain leftists hating sports comes from, like,
100%.
Yeah, it's like just to give a little context. Yeah,
that's I guess that's if you assume that the leftists were the ones not playing sports, or like leftists are like geeks. They're the quote unquote the geeks who weren't good at sports. And I think the podcast shows that that's not the case. Or is there geeks? Maybe we were both geeks. You can be a geek and still play sports.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. So I gotta kick things off with the two Jaguar fans that are here, and I gotta ask, draft grade that you gave your team, and how good are you feeling? I mean, because let's be honest, you got a lot to feel good about.
Yeah, Nate, we haven't talked about the draft since it happened. And we didn't even talk. We talked a little during the draft on the group text with another person who hosts the podcast,
Bob Schlehuber. He doesn't host a podcast, a daily radio show, Political Misfits on Radio Sputnik. Yeah,
I wasn't going to say his name. I was going to keep it in like anonymity, but
Oh, I don't know. That's not doxing or anything. It's not like Bob. Go follow Bob Schlehuber on Twitter. He needs some more Twitter followers, man. We got to pump him up, right? So,
Bob,
yeah.
Good guy.
All right.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the draft. So,
yeah.
what are your thoughts on the draft?
I mean, I think that first of all, I got to say, I talked about this on By Any Means Necessary last week. There are a couple things that beyond before I get to the football stuff is like the whole Dallas the way they were having different fans announce the picks. The one with the Dallas Cowboys one really struck me. They bring out this black woman who's like a social worker now to announce Micah Parsons' pick, 12th overall, and it's like all they mention with no context is that she's like somebody who has like anxiety and depression from Iraq, and now while she's over there basically fighting for our freedom, and now she's like, and that's the thing. The NFL doesn't even like try to mask like the jingoism. Like they literally still say stuff like, like, oh, like fighting for our freedom and stuff, even though it's just like, it's just. Even like politicians don't like do that with Iraq anymore. They try to like be like, oh, we know that was a bad war, but like, I mean, Yankee Stadium. I was like watching. I was at the game, Yankees Tigers last weekend with a friend, and it's an interesting experience. Only 20% capacity. Like unlike Florida, where Mike lives, where the governor is basically making it illegal for anyone to make sure people are vaccinated. I actually had to bring my vaccination card with me. Either that or like to get in the stadium. Or you can have proof of a negative PCR test within 72 hours or antigen test within the last like 6 hours. So that's obviously not as reliable. But anyways, it was just like the 7th inning stretch came along, and I'm like, God, why can't they just play "Take Me Out to the Ball Game"? I mean, you already have the national anthem earlier. Now we got to have "God Bless America" still. They've done this at Yankee Stadium since like 9/11, and it's
did
like
they chain it off? Do they still chain it off?
Well, they still chain it off.
Yeah, because they got there's a lot of video out there of cops literally coming through and chaining the rows so people don't leave for God Bless America. Now that was like years ago, and they took a lot of flack for it.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious if it's
that's not happening anymore.
They let people actually go get a beer.
Yeah, but what's funny is like all these like gun-ho, like, hate Kaepernick type cats, even at like NFL stadiums, games you go to, or like at Yankee Stadium, for example, like before COVID, like people are like not even like, it's sort of like if you're, I'll intentionally go and get like a beer or like go to concession line, because then it's like, I don't have that awkwardness of like being like, or I'm just gonna like, with like, what am I gonna like, just sit down and like, then just have annoying like, like arguments before the game even starts with people I don't even want to talk to, or just kind of don't go to the bathroom then, it's like, but I want to sit there and like, just like, it's just disgusting. I mean, like, you have like flags flying all over these people, all over the stadium, but then you have these fans that also feel like they are like, it's so important that they bring a duffel bag with an American flag in the duffel bag that they like fold up neatly and then unfold out for like God Bless America and hold up like in the bleachers and like at attention. I'm like, dude, there's flags flying all around the stadium. If you're already like, you got to have extra flags to like, so it's just like, I don't know, man. It's like that stuff really like, bothers me more.
What's the name of that firefighter at the Jets game?
Fireman Ed.
He used to have the flag like
J-E-T-S, Jets. Yeah.
Here's Go ahead. Oh, did you freeze?
You good, Justin?
No, I was gonna say like it's hilarious to me. It's hilarious to me from a video production standpoint, right? This is how I make a living, is being on these crews. And when you're at a live sporting event and the national anthem's happening, all those shots they get are from somebody who's not paying attention to the anthem because they're fucking working. We're filming everybody. We're filming, and you've got a live director, you've got producers, everybody's on comms, they're all talking, they're all everything, just to give you the shot that someone else would then be mad at you for talking through. And I always just think that's funny that when you're seeing this shot, there's like a camera person that's getting all of these shots. They're not paying attention to the anthem. And anyway, it just adds a level of hilarity to it whenever anyone's like, come on, man, show some respect. Like, no, like, you're showing what this means by filming it and putting it out there for everyone else to see. Like, it's part of a spectacle, man. Like, anyway. Yeah.
No, 100%. I mean, the other thing on top of the, like always, the naked kind of white nationalism that occurs throughout sporting events is, I don't know if you also noticed this, Nate and Justin, CEO, Commissioner Roger Goodell, he would talk about the NFL's partnership with the social justice initiative.
Oh man, don't
Yeah.
go in on this.
Fair
Go in
Food
on this.
Organization. No, they had one that was like
Indigenous,
the
right?
black-
Indigenous communities, and what about health disparities and like
Health
across racial
disparities.
demographics?
It was like there was one about black-owned business, like it's like a black.
Oh, the guy in
power
Cincinnati, the dude in Cincinnati with his son, and Goodell holds his son's hand and is like, "Come here, little buddy." Like,
Come here, little buddy. Yeah, we're with you. You know. No, I mean, it's definitely co-op. Not even co-option. It's definitely them kind of placating. You know what I'm saying? The demand you've seen from the movement and stuff in regards to, like owners supporting more causes and shit. But of course, they do it in the way that, I don't know. It kind of seems packaged and cheesy. You know what I'm saying? But whatever. I'm not going to. It's just really interesting to see that as well.
No doubt,
Yeah.
man. I mean, like real quick, I just gotta say, I mean, the whole thing. Let's talk about the Quiddy Pay thing. I mean, how they just talk about Quiddy Pay, being raised in a refugee camp in Guinea after escaping the civil war in Liberia. No contextualizing of like the history of Liberia, why its capital is named Monrovia, how the history of like kind of like the using that as sort of a plan to have the recently emancipated black slaves that had been recently emancipated to send them back there, right? And that none of that, and none of like the role U.S. imperialism plays, of course, in creating the instability in Africa that causes all these problems, like such as child soldiers and all these other issues that liberal interventionists use as rhetoric for why we need to have a robust U.S. presence in the region or whatever. Bullshit they want to throw out there, but it's like instead it's a individualist narrative of Quiddy Pay, who like is a good person. He doesn't deserve to be like hated on, but like but his whole story then is just propped up without any context as inspirational affirmation narrative of why the system works. And it's like poverty porn, and it's like people like that love, and like even Najee Harris, great human being. I've been watching some of the al.com, which is like the website for media Alabama. It's al.com for Alabama, that is, and they've been following sort of his path to the draft. And he was homeless just a few years ago, and growing up in Oakland, East Bay, Richmond, and Najee's like I said, it couldn't be a better person, man. It's like couldn't happen to a better person. But still, the whole idea of like, why is it that that would be a situation to begin with? And here, like the wealthiest nation in the world, of course, those questions aren't things that are play into the sports media industrial complex's narratives, right? And aren't things that are gonna lend yourself to keeping a job in that industry. Hence why someone like myself, who would have been tailor-made given my background and knowledge, that to go into something like that is not in something like that, working in that industry. So I kind of want to be able to keep my mouth shut and want to. So that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted that Quiddy Pay, like they wanted that narrative of just how he got out, America was the savior that he wanted to get to, like all that shit. Just selling it the simple way.
It's always a very like a redemption, like kind of make it bootstrapism type of trope. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's always, I mean, that's what's kind of ruling class ideology uses the idea of sports to show individuals' deepest tirades and deepest if you work hard enough as an individual and strive and pure hard work and listen to what your coaches say and all that jazz, you're going to be successful. I mean, that's a microcosm for how capitalism works and how capitalism encourages individuals to believe that if you just start that small business, you can be Microsoft, and you can be a millionaire and stuff. And,
remember, as Justin taught us, I mean, Paul Allen and Bill Gates are just two guys hanging out in their garage, right? Who created
a couple of college dropouts, just living the dream.
That's the American dream. Go watch Silicon Valley on HBO, man, and just see him living the life, man. It's disgusting, man. Yeah.
It is. But
we got Texas linebacker Jake Ellinger found dead near UT campus.
I saw that, man.
Well, the younger brother of Sam Ellinger, rest in
Mhm.
peace. I don't want to, it's
That's
obviously
crazy.
sad.
Yeah, I saw
Right.
that Sam Ellinger got drafted. I don't recall what team drafted him though. But I guess quickly, Nate, what do you think of the Jaguars draft?
Oh, I mean, I think they hit a home run. I mean, it's just what else can you say? I mean, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I think Travis Etienne's a guy that is not just a conventional running back. I mean, you're like an offensive weapon type cat who can do all sorts of things. Catching passes out of the backfield, and it's they want to get fast. They want to get explosive plays, and that's what they did there. I think the interesting pick was Walker Little in the second round out of Stanford. He hasn't played really since 2018, but has huge upside. So that's just we'll see what happens, right? And then go down the line. They clearly were just trying to I think just add depth, add good players. I mean, I think all in all it was they did what you can. You can't address everything. That's why it's a draft. You can't get everybody you want.
Yeah.
So I've been hearing a lot. I'm inundated being up here in this area with Giants and Jets stuff, and the Giants are pretty happy with the draft. They didn't get any offensive linemen, but they've had guys drafted in recent years, and they did get a lot of help in other areas though. And Kadarius Toney is clearly like the guy that Urban Meyer really wanted, and instead he'll be sporting, rocking it for Big Blue this fall, and helping Daniel Jones out, and get some more speed for them. The Jets hit a home run, I think. I mean,
I think that's going to be the most curious kind of cultural clash of any draft pick. Let's say you bring in the like different like geo like political dynamics. Zach Wilson played for BYU, as a Mormon, Provo, which is probably the most conservative city in Utah, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah. But Zach Wilson's brash though, and he's cocky, and he's almost tailor made for New York City, Mike. I mean, I feel like.
I guess the only thing is like Zach Wilson is a right winger too. You know what I'm saying? Like it shows like he has he's like a lot of the Trump's posts, especially around the election and stuff. So I guess Trump is also a New Yorker. So I'm wondering if like Zach Wilson's gonna lay the foundations.
Well, don't forget, Mike. I mean, Trump is switched his residency to Florida, so
right,
I mean,
he claims Manhattan.
I'm gonna go.
He's a Floridian now.
I'm gonna go total AM radio sports host on both of you, since you're both Jaguars fans, and ask a question for both of you.
Go for it.
I'm gonna turn into like Mike fucking Greenberg here for a second. My question is this: there's a lot of pressure that's going to be on a rookie quarterback and a rookie running back, and that haven't had a lot of experience with failure. So my question is, like, how do you keep those two? Like, how do you prepare for the fact? And I'm not saying that like they're gonna like win 2 games this year, but like they could be a 500 team, which would be an improvement for the Jaguars, but also like that's the worst year those two have ever had. So I'm just like, honestly, like from the mindset of a player, like in a situation, how do you keep people from falling into that trap of just used to winning? And you get through these like first few years, you can make some splashes, you can make things happen, but how do you keep confidence up?
I mean, I personally think that they're going to win. I think when you have a quarterback who's always used to winning and a coach that's always used to winning, I mean, the overall talent of the roster isn't necessarily. It wasn't a 1-15 roster, in my opinion. It was more probably like a 5-11 roster or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like any team, like most teams are 800. Are like, I guess that doesn't exist anymore since they added they added the extra game of labor. They care so much about player safety, they gave them another game to beat their heads up.
Hey, come on, man. We love playing football.
Football, though,
Yeah.
Yeah, football. But I don't know, man. I have a feeling that like Urban Meyer, it's kind of surreal. I'm a Florida State graduate, but I did grow up a UF football fan. So like watching him take over as the UF coach, lead him to 2 national titles. You know what I'm saying? And then seeing him do his old, I need to retire, and then go to Ohio State, win a national title there. I mean, there's something about his method of doing things, I guess, that I think leads to production. And Trevor Lawrence is a quarterback, as a prospect, is considered generational. And oddly enough, he was noted as he talked to Trump. Trump called him around the whole, like, players coming back to work, and players wanting to come back to play. Trevor Lawrence was a big factor in that. He just said we want to play. They definitely left out the part about the flyer they were sharing, in which players wanted a union. They kind of left that out. They were like, oh yeah, they want to play. What about the union? Oh yeah, I didn't see that on the flyer. He actually, around that, the president of the United States, called them and wanted to, of course, that was supporting Trump agenda at the time, but also when there was a Black Lives Matter rally on Clemson's campus, he actually took part in that and actually spoke. Of course, he gave the most, I can't say experiences. You want me to read it?
Yeah.
No, I don't know, man. It's we talked about it before.
He was definitely like one of those, like, it was like a non-political speech, but it's still him speaking at a rally about police brutality and him willing to be there. I just think, I think he hasn't been, so I say to say, I think the team's going to be successful. I think even in the NFL, a loss, you can still win depending on how the team looks comparatively to previous years. I think the whole attitude is going to change. I mean, I don't know, Nate. Like, being a Jags fan, this is pretty surreal.
It is, man. It's like, and hearing Urban Meyer even talk about, like, you just like the confidence he's bringing to things, like the energy that's being brought to just the discussions around the team. I mean, you just can't overstate. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is a transcendent talent. I mean, I don't think there's been anything closer to a sure thing. I mean, I just don't see, like, look, I'm not wearing the teal colored glasses here. I mean, I in this sense of, like, I don't care if he was on whatever team. He is. I mean, I thought this all the way through college, that I've seen very few people that are as polished and are just dynamic in everything they do. I mean, his speed. I mean, Ohio State fans remember that very well from that 2019 Fiesta Bowl, just taking off, running away from, like, the Ohio State defensive backs. I mean, it's he's the real deal. I mean, but to answer Justin's question, I mean, yeah, people understand there's a difference in the NFL. I mean, than compared with college, and they're just going to have to give. I think 8-8 would be a really good season for Jacksonville this year. To be honest, I mean, right now, right, 8-9. Sorry,
9-8, yeah,
or 9-8. So I don't think that'll be a problem. I think it will be a problem if you get to year two, and that's still happening. But yeah, not in year one though. No. Yeah, so real quick about baseball, Justin, what's on your radar in the world of baseball right now? To switch it up, to just give I think there's a lot going on. I was just at Yankee Stadium this weekend, and the booing of the Astros I want to ask you about first, because I think that they deserve to, whatever stadium they go to just be absolutely, like, treated like pariahs and ostracized. Because to me, like, maybe you could summarize what it was they actually did and how it's different than other kinds of cheating, and how it, like, fits into the whole, like, analytics type, culture and all that, because it really was, like, I find it personally disgusting, and maybe just you could, as a baseball guy, kind of, like, educate the listener, viewers, a little bit about what they were doing from 2017 through until they got caught, and, like, after 2019.
Yeah, so it is. I guess I can start a higher level up, right? Which is, just in case someone absolutely doesn't know anything about baseball, but your signs that come from your catcher to your pitcher, it's a really important communication that those two have. And as long as baseball's been around, there's been sign stealing. Sign stealing is something that, it's natural when somebody's on second. You're on second, you can catch a sign, that kind of comes down to your catcher and your pitcher knowing how to mask that, right? Or getting creative. There's There's a Jansen, the closer for the Dodgers, former closer for the Dodgers. There's a great video you can get of him intentionally balking just to get somebody off second base because they were stealing signs. You know, and that sort of thing is known to a level. There's a level to that is acceptable. It's not against the unwritten rules of baseball when a runner's on second. To go beyond that in any scope is definitely beyond the pale when it comes to cheating. Now let's say you set up a camera. Now let's say that camera is relaying a live feed to the dugout, where the dugout can then do something to get the attention of the batter to let you know the next sign. And let's say that you go so obvious with your boldness here that thing is taking a bat to a trash can and letting anyone know when a pitch is off speed. You know, you're never gonna get location. You're never gonna get any of that from sign stealing. But all you need to do is know when to lay off an off-speed pitch. Swing at fastballs. Fastballs create velocity. Pop off the bat, you have a better shot. Off speed, you're not going to do much with that pitch compared to, you know, that momentum of a bat hitting a fastball. So they were laying off anything off speed, anything. They'd take strikes, you know, or they'd let, you know, a curveball die in the dirt. But like the point is they weren't going to swing if they heard that bat on a trash can. This kind of elaborate level of, I mean, we've got cameras, we've got broadcast feeds. That means I had to have a monitor somewhere in the dugout. Somebody's monitoring this, you know, this camera feed in real time to send these signals. The videos when they first came out, you know, are so obvious. But like, it's funny in those first few games. It's not funny, but like, it's comical to go back and like actually catch announcers being like, "What is that?" Like literally talking about the banging before anyone really caught on to what they were doing. It didn't take long. Obviously, the investigation goes, they get caught after winning the World Series, after eliminating the Yankees and beating the Dodgers. They win the World Series. They get caught with this scheme. Leads to lots of fallout, lots of firings, manager suspensions. I mean, it followed Cora all the way to Boston. You know, he was a manager of a new team, and he had to sit out a year. For being a part of it. I mean, it's a big deal in regards of like, I get it. It's like, it's only cheating if you get caught when it comes to, I guess, certain things, right? Like it's only cheating if you get caught stealing a sign on second, but people have been stealing signs on second since 1890. You know, like that is something to go this far with it. And to give yourself that kind of advantage, and then to ride it all the way to the World Series is just, that it's unprecedented. And I agree, they deserve to be booed. I mean, last year, Altuve and Springer and Bregman were like the most hit batters because pitchers just teed off on them. Like they're gonna get thrown at, they're gonna get booed.
Right.
They were a part of this. They were complicit in all of this. Like those players knew, everybody knew. I think there was like one dude that you couldn't find any video evidence of a trash can ever banging when he was at the bat. But it's like, that's one guy, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't solve the team. And I'm sure that they had a locker room conversation. I'm sure they asked like, "Hey, are you cool with this?" And somebody was like, "No, I'm not. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to play baseball my way." And they went, "Okay, don't tell on us though," you know, and move on. So it's,
couple things, man, that just to react. It's like it's really the idea that you're sitting there like filming these things, relaying them through like computers and all that, and then like you look at Altuve, it explains why his batting average was so insanely high now, and then you look at it now how he's regressed and now his batting like the mid 200s, basically mid to high 200s. I mean, it explains it. I mean, it was like almost out of this world, and now we know. Well, it literally was unbelievable, right? So like it's the whole Astros thing. They represent also something like that. This whole analytics culture that's like gone insane and like is like so fits within the idea of like the gig economy type bullshit. The way Silicon Valley, the data crunching, the people that like data driven everything. It's like the Astros are like the embodiment of that. They had a terrible I mean, as far as reactionary management goes, structures go, it was like bad in a world of like horrible amongst MLB, and they treated people awfully. There's the whole Astros organization. There's a book out now that I'm actually I want to suggest about the Astros that let's see, in the name of the book. I'm actually what's the name of the thing here? That there's Astro Ball. Yeah, I'm reading now, and it's I just through the first couple chapters, but the new way to win it all, and it gets back to there's a 2014 SI cover, and like I think June or early July of 2014, and it's like meet the 2017 World Series champion, Houston Astros. And the idea was that they got intentionally really bad to then like build up. It's a little different than the way the Sixers did, but the process we heard about, but it was clearly an effort to use analytics to dump salary and then to build back up with a core of talent that's totally driven by data and analytics, and it really bit them in the ass last year. And when you look at
and they weren't going to let it fail, and they were going to cheat so it didn't fail.
Exactly. So, anyways, let me give you a little taste of how they were welcomed in the Bronx the other night, because Aaron Judge lost the MVP award in 2017, and to I believe Altuve, and then so there's a lot of anger over that. I mean, it's not just the Yankees, but they just happen to just finished a 3-game set today against the Yankees, and then you had the 2019 season, and who knows? It's like a lot of teams can look back and think like what might have been, but it's also just like. Think of what happened to, I think back to the Black Sox scandal in like 1919. All right. And like those are working class guys that like were absolutely being wretchedly exploited by Mr. Comiskey, the owner of the White Sox. I mean, just like if he didn't feel like paying them, he wouldn't pay him. But that doesn't get talked about, right? In the Black Sox scandal, they were stripped of the title. I mean, I guess you had to be when it came out that it was gambling like that on the World Series. But it's the hypocrisy we see and what becomes like scandal and what doesn't, and like what teams that have had things stripped from them and then that doesn't get stripped. It's pretty astounding. Real quick though, let me go ahead and play this real quick to get a feel. There goes the trash can stuff. You see all that in Anaheim too with the Angels. She's fired up. That's kind of gross, but let's see here.
Again, just over 10,000 people here.
That's not even worse. So let's see. This is kind of a hit piece here, but let's see. I've never the vitriol in like a May baseball game, just for like at a 10,000 seat game, capacity game. In terms of like the attendance being capped at that due to the New York State rules of 20% capacity max, it's pretty astounding here. It was really loud. I'll say that.
Yeah. There's no.
I don't know.
There's no love lost with the Astros. I mean, if you know about baseball before the last reorganization, but they were in the NL Central for a long time. So we had to play them a lot. But I will say that before they were caught cheating, we were caught hacking their servers. So we were trying to get a little something.
I love it. Don't snitch on your squad, Justin. All right.
Don't snitch on my. I'm not snitching. That dude got. That dude got fired. I mean,
I know,
they made a big deal out of that.
It is the people like Mike who don't follow baseball, and I suspect the people that are watching this right now maybe. But anyways,
I do have.
I kid you, but yeah.
I have some good news. I have some good news in the world of baseball, at least for Cardinals Nation, and that good news is that Albert Pujols was cut today. And the reason that is huge is that Albert Pujols, when he left and in free agency and signed with the Angels, he signed that 10-year deal. He's in the 10th year. They signed a secondary deal for personal appearances and how do they call it? Like ambassadorship that would guarantee that for 10 years after that 10-year deal, he couldn't wear another jersey, throw out a first pitch, go into a different team's Hall of Fame, do anything at all that wasn't on behalf of the Angels for 10 years after the deal. And the only thing that would negate that is if he didn't live out the 10 years. So as a Cardinals fan who just wants to see Albert come back and be able to throw out like a first pitch or go into the Cardinals Hall of Fame, it's a huge deal that he got cut today. He's going to find a DH spot somewhere. He will be a DH somewhere. Like
I saw
he'll
that.
Be fine. I'm just glad that deal is over before it hit its completion.
Yeah. So say that again real quick. If he would have completed the term, the 10-year deal, it was a 10-year, $300 million contract he signed that would have expired into this year. What would have happened again?
He would not be able to make an appearance for any other team. Let's be honest. They're talking about the Cardinals. The only other team he's ever played for.
Right.
His best years were there.
Absolutely.
And this also means he can't sign a one-day contract and retire a Cardinal. He can't do anything. It basically locks him into being an Angel for 10 years after he retires or after that contract's up.
Right. But now that's done.
Now that he's cut, that's out.
So what precipitated it? I'm trying. Is it just like they just want the roster spot open? You think?
Yeah, they got a first baseman behind him that's playing really well, and Ohtani is a better DH right now than Albert.
Ohtani is just an amazing story. I mean, it's unprecedented in modern baseball to see.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So the superstar of the Japanese baseball, professional ball came over. I mean, to be a star pitcher, like a stud, and also literally one of the best hitters in the game.
Yeah,
you have to go back to Babe Ruth for something like for his historical.
Yeah, it's impressive
parallel. Yeah.
So yeah, there's just no spot for him, and some I actually think he winds up with the White Sox back with La Russa. That's the last manager he had in St. Louis. They both left the same year after winning the World Series in 2011.
Right.
I think he winds up back there. They're decimated by injuries, and I would give anything for him to pass A-Rod on the home run list.
A-Rod, baby.
And he's got a shot.
Hey, so check this out real quick for this is a little better clip here.
Visited Yankee Stadium with fans in the stands for the first time since the cheating scandal dropped last year. And it's safe to say that it's not going too well for them.
In case you don't know, that's fuck Altuve. Which I'm all about because he supports. He's anti. He's from Venezuela and he's like a big Venezuelan opposition guy from what I hear.
Yeah.
Hey Carlos, you're never gonna be a champion, Carlos.
Hey Carlos, you're never gonna be a champion, Carlos.
You suck. You suck.
Now, Justin, tell them why they're saying Altuve, take off your shirt. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I got mixed opinions on that just because we don't know, man. Like I don't know. I don't know what that was. Was that confetti in a necklace
totally
or was
legit.
I don't know.
He had a start. The reason why would he be so? He wasn't just saying not take up. It's like he was hiding something. He was intentionally like that was part of it. He had that. That was part of the relaying of the information. He had a smart watch on or smart device on under his, and that's how he was getting stuff from the getting signs relayed to him. So he knew what pitches were coming. He literally knew what pitches were coming. It was just it's like one of the biggest shams in sports. It's unreal.
When you don't know, you
When you don't This is his life. Every ballpark he's going to be going to now. He got off the hook last year because of COVID.
Yep.
Things are getting thrown onto the field. There are boos galore, players getting taunted, and most importantly, they haven't been that great to start the year. The Astros now apparently have tried to take this matter into their own hands, and I'm not talking about by winning. I'm talking about that kind of matter when you ask for a manager. Take a second to like this video, and if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe if you enjoy this video. Now, this isn't the first time they've been booed and taunted and heckled this season by the fans who are back in the stands. Back in early April, when the Astros were in Anaheim to play the Angels for the first time this year, things went a little haywire. And it all started when an inflatable trash can was thrown onto the field.
There's Otani right there, the Japanese sensation, by the way. Literally a god, baby.
And led to a literal trash can with trash in it being thrown onto the field while Jose Altuve was up.
Can on the field. I'm guessing that's an inflatable trash can shared on the field. I don't know that I've ever seen an inflatable trash can. Any career is winning trash cans. Now that's
I love it.
Deal.
How they do that one?
I have no idea that one.
When they were visiting Oakland during the opening week, the limited number of fans at the Coliseum, they let them hear it. Now, it didn't necessarily affect the Astros at first because they won a ton of games to start the year, which included an opening series sweep over the Athletics. Since that 4-game series sweep in Oakland to start the year, Houston is 11-50.
However, you see that huge upper deck in the center field? That's purely what a perfect encapsulation of the absurdity of sports stadium. It's like that was built so the Raiders would move back there in the mid-90s from LA, and then they had it tarped off even for Raiders games, and then now the stadium is like only for A's games, but yet it blocks like one of the most majestic views, of the Bay Area or whatever, with this monstrosity of an upper deck that just like costs too much to demolish.
They've now lost 2 straight in New York, and like I said to start off this video, it's clearly not going too swell.
In fuego!
As much as I've loved Dusty Baker throughout the years, the way he's been over the last year since he took the Astros
Dusty Baker's the man, by the way. He's a great,
pretty cringe.
But
the fans were extremely hard on Al.
It's still cringy the way he's been dealing with this, but I believe like one of the a great baseball lifer. I mean, and came up and as I don't know, what do you think?
I think Dusty Baker's career speaks for itself. I mean, he's been able to go everywhere that he's gone. He's inherited good teams and succeeded, which rightfully so. But he's inherited bad teams and he's succeeded, and his longevity. Anyway,
so Mike, I want to get you back in here. You're probably just like sitting here ready to shut down all this baseball talk, but anything else? Let's see what we got here in the chat. All right,
baseball, man. I kind of, I'll wait till the summer, to start paying more attention.
Wow, I know. I'm not gonna lie. It's like my dad. That's one of the biggest. That's one of the biggest things we talk about. Because for me, it's like football, is like such a part of my life. I haven't played in like basketball even too, but I had to stop playing baseball after 8th grade. It was just too much to juggle. But as a fan, it's like it is sort of like it brings me back to like it's a different place as a fan. Sort of like it's an experience. It's like football is a lot more like baseball allows me to kind of relax. It's like I'm a nerd. I'm a stat nerd, history nerd. I've read so much about stuff growing up, so it's like there's a lot that goes into like what makes me enjoy it. That I can totally get how people who haven't had that experience growing up wouldn't have the same enjoyment of it. I mean, it's like you kind of have to be wired a certain way, be raised on it a certain way.
So what would have happened was I did when I was growing up. I became a Marlins fan when they first won their first 2 World Series. And then I also was a Yankees fan, for a while. When Vegeta and Steinbrenner and whatnot. I think it's like a real thing with baseball, especially when it comes with nationalities and whatnot. Like, while I was, schooling and stuff like that, I went to Kirby. I think it was a baseball
Kirby,
team.
I went to Kirby Smith too, by the way. Where Mike and I went to middle school is named
We went
after
to the same middle school, yeah.
Yeah, where it's
Well,
named after.
well,
It's a
my high school-
majority black school named after the Confederate general who commanded all Confederate forces west of the Mississippi River, Edmund Kirby Smith.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way,
Lovely stuff, man.
did your dad vote to change the name?
Yeah, I think he voted. I think Riverside High School. He said, but the thing is, it's a sham. They're going to split the vote and keep the name. I think now, like by putting Riverside and Avondale on there, the idea was like that's going to cause like the people voting to change the name to split it. All right, like this is talking about Robert E. Lee High School. All right,
like there's a question I believe on the vote that asks straight up, do you support the changing of the name?
Okay, all right. Then
Yeah.
I got you. All right, so.
No,
I don't even like the idea of having the vote though. I mean, why can't the board like make a stand and do like something right? I mean, and I don't like the rule that you can't Duval County Public Schools. You can't name a school after a human being anymore. They want to avoid these kind of issues, so like they can't rename it. For instance, like after say Lawrence E. Lee, who like is a local black guy who did a lot in the community, who has the Lawrence Lee Boys and Girls Club, named after the Lee Bulls, totally unrelated AAU basketball team I was on with like Derwin Kitchen.
Well, even,
I don't know. It's like
even Joseph E. Lee, like that was a name that came up. I mean, it's kind of BS. I mean, it's kind of like, simple politics, how politicians always want to punt it, go to a vote or anything just to make sure that if it goes away, that people don't want it. They always have some ways to avoid accountability.
But I mean, that'd be like saying we're gonna let like the public vote on like something like civil rights, like desegregation in a place that's like, or what if it's like a county that's like 2/3 white? You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I 100% agree. That's something that the Duval County School Board, they created a process to take town halls and comment, and then there'd be a vote on should white supremacist, racist, Confederate leaders' names be, like even Andrew Jackson, like they're going through a name change process right now. I actually voted, my alma mater, my high school, all black high school, that they're going through a name change situation. To name it, I guess Springfield High School.
Is that going to happen? You think at Jackson?
I think Jackson's more likely to happen, to be honest, more so than even Lee, because think about it. I think Lee very recently became majority black school.
Well, not very, and then it was like the early '90s. It kind of like started turning that way.
Yeah, but it's still been
early mid '90s. Yeah, and then 2000s. Just it progressively became.
It's still been very half and half. Like it's kind of very Kirby-ish. Like
I don't know. It's more like close to 70-80% when I was coaching there, but yeah.
Maybe it got that way, but the alumni at Lee.
Oh yeah. But those people are like they graduated in the 70s, 80s, and before that.
Yeah,
the people that
the
were
active alumni.
Right?
The
active alumni.
In the community, and of course, mostly around the community, you got a bunch of like older boomers and folks with time on their hands.
Yeah.
Jackson is the.
Well, Jackson was all white until the early 70s, right?
Yeah. So the alumni.
Yeah.
The advantage of that is most of them are dead,
or they're just old and don't give a shit.
They're like 70s or 80s, and they're obviously not as active in the school and organizing money for the school. So
right.
Black high school now.
Well, my dad's high school graduating year was the last year before they had full integration. He graduated in 71. The fall of 71 is when, but they had partial. So like they had a point guard on his basketball team who transferred from Raines. It was like voluntary sort of thing, but it wasn't like mandatory busing that went into place in the fall of 71 with the Mecklenburg County decision, the Supreme Court in Charlotte that had a huge impact on pushing that stuff. So my dad was in high school. It was like a handful of like black people were going to Lee, but that was it was just kind of starting.
Yeah. That's so crazy. We got in this rift talking about.
Yeah. So anyway, you always wanting to bring it back to Jacksonville.
When I went to Andrew Jackson, the baseball team was non-existent. So it's kind of one of them things in which baseball was still a very popular sport at the time. That was on TV, and I would follow it as a young kid. But I guess where I lived, and even amongst my friends, there wasn't like a lot of reinforcement of talking about baseball. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
As opposed to like, and to be honest, like Nate, you went to Bowls, and you're like, your family's into baseball, and you're like most. I feel like most white dudes I know something a little bit about baseball. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But
So
I don't know.
I just wasn't around the people
Right.
who
Yeah.
knew about baseball.
Absolutely.
Reinforce
Absolutely.
that. Because I wish I was, but it's also hard to be a Marlins fan, because like you're a fan of a certain amount of players, and then they win, and then they gut it.
Oh yeah.
It's like you won't. But then again, financially, like the Marlins owners have gotten like a lot of shit for that, like being very going that style of like, being strategic and stuff like that. And I don't know. I guess it's different ownership styles in regards to how you win, but they won 2 World Series championships in the past 30 years. I mean,
and they did it with payrolls that total payroll was less than like a mid-level star of the team they beat.
So this is a good question to ask y'all. So if you knew, so you're a fan of a team, Nate, you're Jags, and I guess Justin, the Cardinals, I believe.
Cardinals in baseball, Seahawks in football. Yeah,
Cardinals. All right. Let's stick with football. So if you knew that every 10 years you win a Super Bowl, but every other year, and you don't know which year you're going to win the Super Bowl, you're going to go 5-11. Would you take that? You know what I'm saying? As a fan?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you're asking, given what we just been through, yeah, but it's also, but you got the journey's important too. We talk so much about end results in this world. It's like, you can't forget the journey, man. Like, anyways,
being like a Red Sox fan, you know what I'm saying, and like losing and almost being there and losing, there and losing.
We often tell the
finally
story
winning.
of like,
yeah, no, you're right. I know it.
It's tough. I mean, I'll in baseball. I mean, just the longevity of the sport and how long it's been around. I mean, that already happens. I feel like that's kind of what you described life like being a Cardinals fan. I mean, we have the second most World Series wins, and we don't have one every decade. Like we don't have one every decade. We have the second most. And that's, I mean, even the Yankees, they have the most. They still don't have one in every decade. They are right now they haven't won since 2009. So, I mean, it's the longest drought they've ever been through. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that it doesn't always guarantee, I mean, the old Yankees way of gobbling up everybody you could and just having a bigger payroll used to work. But, even they ran into the Marlins once, like with a team that literally their entire payroll was like $30 million and they won. But it's interesting with the Marlins because they shine a light on a problem with all the sports really, in the sheer money that exists in exclusive broadcasting rights right now incentivizes not winning. I mean, it doesn't incentivize losing on purpose, but it doesn't mean you have to put a good product out there. And I think a really good indication of that is what Derek Jeter got caught saying, because he bought into Marlins ownership and he was caught, saying the quiet part out loud. And it's kind of funny how the other owners were like, hey man, no, like you never say that. Like, that's not something you say. And what he said was, we don't need to win. We don't need to fill this stadium. We still turn a profit, and that kind of cuts into what the owners want to cry. The owners want to cry, we don't have the money. We don't have the money. We don't have the money. We're mid-level. We don't have the money. Oh, we had a bad year last year. We don't have the money. And here Derek Jeter was caught saying that quiet part out loud, which is, it doesn't matter. Like, Tampa Bay, another Florida baseball team, has had one of the best teams in terms of consistency over the last.
Their fan support is next to nothing. Unless
Nothing.
they're playing the Yankees
At-
and Red Sox, and then they pack the stadium with opposing team
Yep.
fans. How depressing would that be?
Exactly.
You work your tail
Yeah.
off. You make it to the big leagues, man, grinding through the minors. You get there, and you're having all the success, and then you play in front of an empty, crappy dome. And with that, on top of that, usually it's the opposing team's fans when you play your division rival, the Yankees. It's like that is much louder, and you forget the Yankees are based in Tampa. Their corporate headquarters are there. Their single A team is there. Steinbrenner Field is there. It's really a remarkable dynamic. Justin, go ahead and wrap up your thoughts there, because I want to transition to something in a minute.
It's remarkable, and so and the two Florida teams are such a juxtaposition, because the Marlins are historically not so great, of late, and Tampa Bay is one of the top teams, but they're the two lowest fan attendance teams. So like I said, for him to say, we still turn a profit, we still make money, putting a shitty product on the field. They make more in exclusive TV rights and blackout restrictions than they do, at a turnstile, even if they sold out. So what is their incentive to sell out? And the last thing I'll say about this is that one of my favorite Cardinals of the last 10 years has been Tommy Pham. I love Tommy Pham as a player. I love Tommy Pham as a person. And he got traded out of St. Louis, and I think most Cardinals fans know the reason why, and that is that for a black baseball player to be outspoken in the 20 teens, certain ownerships just weren't going to have that. Dexter Fowler smiled and waved. Tommy Pham said what was on his mind. Only one of them was traded.
Right. Can you tell me
Dexter Fowler did get traded, but
what did Tommy Pham say? So that the listeners know.
It wasn't anything specific. It was the fact that Tommy Pham always said something, and it was always honest and raw. And that type of player doesn't fit the mold, that gross shit, and was traded out of there and went to Tampa Bay. And he was in the Cardinals organization for 12 years. And the Cardinals organization has record fan attendance at the AAA level, and they have record fan attendance at the MLB level. That is a baseball town, first. So even for a team to do him wrong, and then, it's not like he held the fans responsible for that. He holds ownership responsible for that. But to hear him talk, you can find some great stuff before he was then traded to San Diego. But you can find him talking about what it's like to play baseball in the state of Florida for a team that's successful and has nobody there, and what it's like coming from 12 years of fan support, and how it's just fucking weird. Like, it just doesn't seem like, it just doesn't compute, it's amazing.
Don't forget that Florida is also the home of spring training, so it's like there's a lot of people that just grew up watching like other teams play and following other teams. The Snowbirds for one, but even like native Floridians, like where Mike and I grew up, it's not really a big snowbird country in North Florida, and it's like. But it's just a weird fit, man, and it's purely just about having teams there because it's the third largest state in the country population-wise now, and they want to have that. The TV stuff, we need to do like an episode on that actually with MLB. It's the most juxtapose that with the NBA, which does not really enforce copyright stuff. They realize that it's actually better to let their highlights get shown and shared around and all that. Whereas MLB, it's constantly you cannot transmit this broadcast without the express written consent of the commissioner of Major League Baseball. And then you have like just think about it. Even I'm having to literally pay for cable and a lot of money now, just so I get Yes Network so I can watch. Because otherwise, there's like no way to consistently be able to watch like the Yankees games, and that's like a big way that my dad and I, our daily kind of conversations about stuff, keeping up. For him, he's got to sit there and have the MLB.TV app. He's like Chromecasting it. Then there's no customer service either. When it wasn't working right on one app, they just basically send you like, "Oh, thank you for your feedback" or whatever. There's no number you can call, anything. Even as like someone who's paying, it's like the version of NFL Sunday Ticket. It's insane. I mean, it's absolutely mad.
We will get off baseball, I promise, right after this. I'm just going to throw this out there to piggyback off that. I'd love to do an episode on the rights and the exclusivity and the different areas, and how they make their money. Because as a quick example, I live in Northern Indiana. There is no baseball team here. I live in a no baseball state.
Yeah, but you're part of the Cubs and White Sox media market, though.
My team is in the NL Central, which means they have to go and play games at Wrigley against the Cubs. They have to go to the Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati and play against the Reds, and both the Reds and the Cubs go to St. Louis multiple times. We're talking about 50 games a year against these two teams. I don't live in a state that has the Reds or the Cubs in it, and I can't watch my Cardinals play either, even though I pay the MLB money to have access to MLB TV. They still don't let me watch those games. That's 50 games a year, 50 to 60 between those two teams, home and away. In division, I cannot watch because of blackout restrictions, because I have to find a way to give those local, cable conglomerates that bought the rights to those in each city, both in Chicago and Cincinnati. I have to find a way to do both. So, I mean, it is, and so many people deal with this, no matter where they are. Now, the crazy thing is I'm 3 miles from the border of Michigan, and if I just lived on the other side of it, none of that would apply. It is.
You'd be in Tigers
country. Insane. Yeah, we played the Tigers once every 5 years.
Right, so right. Oh, yeah. For your, exactly. It wouldn't affect you in terms of your Cardinals shit.
So it is insane. So yeah, I'd love to do an episode on that, because it's not just them. I mean, this happens all over. And like I said, go back to what Derek Jeter said. It's deals like that allow them to suck at baseball and still turn a profit, because those deals are the real money. And that, I mean, how do you get somebody? How do we say, hey, Mike, start loving baseball by watching some games? And then he goes, I can't watch the games. It's insane.
Without paying a ton of money, or having to go through an annoying process of pirating it, which you can do, but it's you come home, you're tired, then you got to look up this one computer, make sure you're not getting a virus or something. Be real careful there. Switch over. Then I'm like, forget it, man. I'll just do something else at that point. But look, we got to transition here, all right? We got to.
Yeah.
I want to show that, first of all, so shout out Miguel Garcia will actually be back with us next week, man. He's great dude. He's been on with us a number of times from Sports as a Weapon podcast. I really, I feel like that we kind of both mutually support each other. So really, really what he does with a Chicano point of view on sports, and bringing a fan perspective and also working class proletariat perspective on sport culture, and everything from fan culture to the player's point of view to exploitation in college sports. So I wanted to play a little clip from his recent interview, and he's also talked about how we could get Frank Gertie on the show. He's a professor at Columbia University, wrote the book The Sports Revolution: How Texas Changed the Culture of American Athletics, and it's amazing the number of examples. I can't all of them, going back to the Houston Cougar teams with Hakeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler, in the early 80s. They're talking back to the 60s when you had SMU and Houston try to desegregate to get a leg up on Texas A&M and Texas that were dragging their feet on it. So many issues in terms of high school ball, in terms of exploitation of female of women in cheerleading, especially the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. I'm gonna play a clip of Miguel's interview about that, actually, because I think it's pertinent, and I also want to plug the book. I think it's a great. I actually ordered my copy. I'm just listening to the podcast he did, and it's I can't recommend it enough. It's but I thought it was interesting that we don't talk. I feel like we need to. There's some gender balance on here too, because there's so many issues in women's sports too that are empowering. And I think that this issue of the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, in the way this is framed, I think it's really interesting and a good way to do that. The other parts of the book that they kind of highlighted and gave a little synopsis of, and only whet your appetite for more. I mean, they get into a lot in terms of also stadiums. Frank talks a lot about stadiums are not just places where games are played; they're visual representations of power. Of like the kind of power the owners want to project, the kind of symbolism and whatnot that fits with certain markets. You talked about Texas Stadium. The Cowboys opened up in, I think, 71 or 72, and how that changed the game, making the fan experience all about like, luxury boxes and making it like perfect for TV sightlines and whatnot. So broadcasting the game for TV would be ideal. It helped like really proliferate, speed up that process of moving to what the world we live in now of like neoliberal sport, where it's all about the TV revenue and everything to fans attending the games or like an afterthought. We saw that with the European soccer stuff a few weeks ago with the Super League getting blown up. I talked about that actually recently, like especially week before last with Sean and Jackie on By Any Means Necessary. I just uploaded that actually to our podcast, so you can check that. I still got to put some more stuff up on there. As I told you, I've been moving. I've had some health issues, root canal today. It's been rough, but I think about to turn the corner. I'm excited to get back and really start trying to churn some stuff out. Also get back doing some writing and getting that up on Patreon. Really appreciate the support. We got 20 patrons now. I'm going to also want to just one more housekeeping note. Take the John Dolan, aka Gary Bretcher, the War Nerd interview from behind the paywall here soon. It only, honestly though, it's like, I don't know if I even should. You could donate like a dollar, even, and like, access it. It's not, and to be able to do this, it's, but I feel like we've been on a hiatus for a few weeks, and I want people to actually be exposed to that, because he's a fascinating cultural figure. I mean, his work with the exiled over in post-Soviet Russia in the 90s and writing under the pseudonym Gary Bretcher, and the way he's made so many predictions about like U.S. wars and that have just come to fruition is remarkable. And combine that with his knowledge of like global insurgencies and leftist movements and reactionary movements and how they all kind of interact. Definitely, please, I got to plug that again. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and listen to this clip of Miguel. This is the part about the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, and this is Frank Gurdy here. And I think that it's really interesting. I kind of want to hear Mike's reaction to this and Justin's, honestly, too. And then love to hear y'all's questions also. So let's go ahead and check this out. This clip here I got plugged up. And let me know if the sound is all right on y'all's end. Oh, I apologize. I was streaming the wrong tab there. All right, here we go. I had it queued up right, and now we got it coming back. Should be good to go here.
Men and women, although mostly women. But then what happens in 1972 is that the Cowboys decide to refashion their cheerleading group into this, kind of sexualized dancing, group the same year that Title IX is passed. So Title IX is part of the story because I'm trying to show the context. I'm trying to show how women are now experiencing opportunities in the realm of sport, right? And how male institutions are resisting that at every turn, right? And we're seeing that at the collegiate level, at the youth level as well. But at the same time, that's the same period we're seeing now the emergence of this sexualized cheerleading group, right? Which in some ways, to me, is a direct it's connected in my mind, because it's like, okay, so we're going to bring women into the scene. We're going to kind of keep them sexualized and keep them in a way that's palatable for what they presume to be the male audience who watches sports, right?
And it creates that gender division, still
exactly
keeps that order there.
That's exactly
so
right.
Sexualized, even though now they're becoming stars in a sport, even though they're cheerleaders, they're still like subordinate in a way because
they're absolutely subordinate.
They're sexualized still.
They're sexualized and they're underpaid, and that's a big part of the story, which is still the case today.
Still happens today, which
still the case.
Sounds like it's crazy to me when I read, recent articles. I think it was like Washington football team didn't pay their cheerleaders.
Yes.
And this is today in 2021.
Lawsuits all over the place now.
This has been happening way since like the 60s and 70s.
That's right. So like, if you want to understand the situation facing cheerleaders today in the NFL and other sports, the NFL is the one that has the most egregious cases, but all of these cheerleading groups are underpaid, right? But they're athletes. I'm sorry, they're entertainers. To be a dancer, right, is not just putting on makeup and looking good for a dude, right? You have to the training regimen of those women in the 70s is almost akin to what the football players were doing. Trying out and enormously, hot or practicing in these, kind of unair conditioned dance studios, being served up a bunch of diet pills to keep their weights down. The train, over and over again, right? The tryout process was extremely rigorous, and it was also, kind of national news. That these things would be put on television in the late 70s, right? And all they got was $15 every home game, not including playoff games or Super Bowl games, right? So that's all they got.
And they wouldn't pay for the travel, correct?
They wouldn't pay. No. They'd have, the cheerleading group's leader would have to find the money to pay for them to dance at the Super Bowl in 1978, for example. Right? It's insane, right? But that's the idea was like, well, they should just be happy to just be famous, and to have the cowboy brand. But again, we often tell the story of like owners giving people opportunities, but it's really a partnership, right, between the player, the employee, and the owner, the manager, right? And so the Cowboys cheerleader plays a significant role in the making the Cowboys brand. They still are part of the Cowboys brand, right? So their bodies are being commodified all over the place with calendars, with all sorts of ephemera sold, with their images. A lot of times we don't even know their names; they're just these pretty faces, right? That that people associate with the Cowboy cheerleading group, but they become a significant part of the Cowboy brand. Absolutely. And it helps them, again, the franchise become one of the most impactful franchises in professional sports, not just in the NFL. And I wanted to show the cheerleaders role in that process. That's what I wanted to do. And they're also, the other thing that's interesting is that, the stereotype of the cheerleaders that they're blonde and white. But, they had a fair amount of Black and Mexican American and Asian American cheerleaders.
This part's really dope.
They seized the opportunity to try to make it become famous. And sometimes that generated careers for themselves, not in cheerleading, but in other realms. And so I want the cheerleaders to have names and stories, not just pretty faces, right? Certainly they're exploited, but they have their own aspirations and, they had their own experiences that are worthy of documenting. And so I tried to do that in that chapter.
Can you briefly talk about the Great Cheerleader War of 1978 that you talk about in that chapter?
That's one of my favorite parts of that chapter. When a group of disaffected cheerleaders decide to pose for Playboy magazine.
This is really dope here.
And why do they do that? They do that because they're underpaid. Some of these other cheerleading squads, what happens is that the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders has a bunch of copycat, cheerleading groups around the NFL. The Honey Bears of the Chicago Bears, the San Diego Chargettes, among the other groups. So a group of them, decide, Playboy comes around and says, hey, you want to pose for us? And some of these women are like, sure. And the NFL really doesn't say anything about it. Like, okay, fine. Right. And, they say yes, because it's exposure. Literally, it's also revenue, more money. And then all of a sudden, it comes out that these cheerleaders have posed, including some for the former Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, some people who had danced for the Cowboys, and all hell breaks loose in 1978. I mean, like, literally, it causes a major scandal. How dare these women pose for Playboy? Which, of course, is absurd, in retrospect. And many of the cheerleaders were fired, right? And they were ostracized. And all of a sudden the NFL says, okay, we're going to pull back on these sexualized cheerleading groups for a little while. These women, they're not really representing their organizations. Meanwhile, they're being exploited for their bodies by the NFL. So there's a clear double standard there. But I like the story because it just shows you the ways in which these women were trying to kind of fight back and resist, and certainly they did it with a magazine that was objectifying their bodies. But, again, if you think about it as them claiming some level of agency in the story and trying to, maximize their revenue generating possibilities, you can understand why they did what they did, and so to me, that exposes the kind of hypocrisy behind the system at the time where, using these kind of stereotypes of women being sluts is that somehow that's not okay to post with Playboy, but, dancing for the Cowboys doing almost the same exact thing, that's fine.
And not getting paid.
And not getting exactly.
Except for $15.
That's right.
And then I have a Molotov MVP segment I do every episode. And I'm going to use, her name was Tina Jimenez, right?
Jimenez, yeah.
Yeah, she's going to be my Molotov MVP.
Yeah, think about it, $15 a game. A game. I mean, just let that sink in. And then it's almost over, but this part's really cool here. Miguel does a Molotov.
Same with the Jaguars cheerleaders. Like, I heard it was completely volunteer. Like,
yeah,
I've heard the same thing.
But we got you can't even compare.
Exposure.
The Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders are on such another level from any other NFL fan bases in terms of like prestige and all that. It's because they created this whole genre basically. Hold on, it's about one more minute here. This is pretty cool, like way to wrap it up here about what this one cheerleader did to fight back.
MVP.
I can see why. I wanted to find out more about her. I couldn't. I kept digging and I was trying to. Jimenez, the name jumped out at me, right? I'm like, oh, okay, because she's the one who leads this disaffected group.
Yeah, so it's Tejana that leads this rebellion.
That's what it seems like.
Cowboys.
Yeah, really interesting. No. She gives all these interviews, and that she's very upfront about it. The other thing that happens in that period too is that the pornography industry is part of this story too, right? So this is the period when the film Debbie Does Dallas is made, and that causes a major headache for the Cowboys too, and they actually file a lawsuit against the makers of that film. So you're seeing again how the Cowboys cheerleaders impact, it radiates way beyond sports. If you want to understand the kind of contradictions in the debates around feminism in the 70s, look no further than what's going on in Dallas.
Yeah, for all those people that says sports and politics never mix, here's another example. Another one. I wanted to ask you about the San Antonio Spurs, who used to be.
That's really, we got to stop it there. But that's pretty. They ended up, the Dallas Cowboys sued her, by the way, actually sued her for trying to just be able to profit on her own thing because she called out how exploitative it was. The training regimen they're put through is insane, by the way. They're it's not people cheerleaders, the kind of dismissive attitude some people have towards that. What these women had to put their bodies through purely for the potential, because a few of them do end up making money off being famous, but that's the whole idea of how they justify the whole system across the board is you're going to have a chance to be one of the ones that are able to parlay this into something. We don't owe you anything. We're just giving you this opportunity. It's it's classic gig economy type stuff now. It's we don't owe anything to you. We're just giving you this platform kind of where you can go and use your own resources essentially to try to make some money. In their case, it's just get some exposure, right?
You too could start your own billionaire business in your garage.
There you go.
You too. We all have the opportunity.
That's it. So, anyways, we got to transition real quick. Mike's we got it to Justin. We want to get to you. I
want to know so much more about this LeBron thing, Mike. I want to know so much more about
that's where
maybe let's
so here we go.
Let's touch on that first. So I don't know if folks have seen. There's been maybe I shared the wrong thing in the chat. Maybe that's not worth. But yeah, no, that's I did. So
here we go, Mike. Actually, we should I think this would set the stage a little bit, right? This little video, or should I not worry about that?
Yeah, you can play it. If it plays.
If it plays, go ahead. Keep going until
on my end. So
I believe a company should focus on what they do best. At Tecovas,
we're not getting paid for this ad.
High quality Western.
Just want everyone to know.
LeBron James has talked time and time again about police officers and how they're all killers. However, they're also doing protection at his house. Off-duty officers provide security for him and his family. So you have killers at his house providing security for him. LeBron James sent that tweet out to over 50 million followers to incite violence. It's basically what that tweet did.
But he deleted it. But he deleted it, Jamie.
Yeah, but
it's
already out there, and
it's already out there
and shared time and time again, retweeted. So officers go out there on a daily basis, make a split-second decision, and if they get it wrong, they lose their life. LeBron James, what's the decisions he has to make on a daily basis? To do a layup, a slam dunk?
Oh my gosh! First of all, oh my gosh.
If they get it wrong, it's the end of our life. Well, shit, if you get it wrong, it's the end of a lot of people's lives.
Yeah. It's oh my God. Anyways, it's this cat right here. It's the whole thing idea that he's inciting violence. It's that's the thing that blows my mind, Mike. It's how this he's talking clearly in the context of Derek Chauvin's trial, right? And accountability or whatever for if you want to even use that word, is what's coming.
Just to give you some backdrop, this was all revolving around. I'm sure. I don't know if you've seen the body cam footage for the young 16-year-old who was killed in Columbus, Ohio. Micaiah Grant, I believe it was.
Micaiah Bryant.
Micaiah Bryant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Micaiah Bryant. And of course, LeBron, frustrated, especially given the Chauvin trial that we were just really experiencing on top of the trial of Adam Toledo, on top of the killing of Adam Toledo, on top of the killing of I forget the brother's name who was killed, Dante Wright. You know, so what does LeBron do? He gets frustrated and posts a picture of the cop who killed Ma'Khia Bryant. Which, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. And then he deletes it, of course, because he feels like, oh, I mean, of course, people start to get upset saying he's targeting the cop, like this armed officer who just killed a 16-year-old is afraid for his life. You know what I'm saying? Like, not the people, not the person he killed, but whatever. So, of course, it's just wild how these forces of reaction make LeBron look even cooler, like it's kind of wild. You know what I'm saying? The head of the LA police union trying to use LeBron James and say that the NBA needs to investigate him for inciting violence. You know what I'm saying? This is part of a strategy by the police unions everywhere to really pit police as the victims. Like they're the ones who are oppressed due to footage of them murdering people being actually public now. Like they're the ones who are victims. And LeBron James, how dare he use his platform? And I wonder what Nate to think about this. So maybe when he comes back, we'll ask what, especially in the context of these athletes being more political around sports, especially engaging in politics that the people don't like to hear. It's always, shut up and dribble, like don't say nothing. However, with LeBron, it's he's so quiet, but except when it comes to China, he doesn't speak out foreign policy. He doesn't speak up for the Uyghurs. He's not speaking up for Hong Kong. I mean, maybe LeBron is more educated about that than you.
Yeah.
He shouldn't speak up on this stuff because what does he have to speak up about? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. Or maybe he's educated enough to know that that's a really complicated situation and you can't just knee jerk it. Like
you can't just be like, free Hong Kong. Free Florida. Imagine if Yao Ming was like, hey, free Texas.
Yeah, free Texas.
Break up your country, just
and prison labor. Like if Yao Ming were just to be like, holy shit, I came to America to play basketball. Man, there's a lot of prisons. And holy shit, did you know that they make those people work?
And the thing is, what's happening in Xinjiang with the Uyghurs is far from the prison labor you actually see here. You know what I'm saying? People actually getting paid for that. Like livelihoods are actually being raised from that. But like Nate, I brought up the point about how with LeBron James, usually with the athletes who are outspoken and whatnot, they always tell them, shut up and dribble. However, with LeBron James, they always comment back to him, why doesn't he speak out against China? He's bought off by the Chinese Communist Party.
I mean, I check out. I'll put it in the chat, listeners. I mean, I went in on this. Actually, I need to put this one up there. Last week I went. It was something different, but this was the one about English football last week, and the demise of that Super League. But I'm gonna put up the one from the week before on By Any Means Necessary. I did, and I went off on this stuff, man. It's just disgusting. I mean, the whole stuff, the genocide stuff. I don't know if y'all heard Tony Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State, talking about international rules-based norms, right? In China, we have to enforce Chinese, the increased militarization of China and the military brinksmanship. I mean, we got literally ships all over their coast, right?
Yeah,
this is just rich. I mean, go check out the Gray Zone. They have a communist from Texas. All right, this is dude who escaped from prison back in the day, who's moved to eastern Ukraine and is fighting on the front lines against Ukrainian fascists. And And it's like actually, is married there, has immersed himself in the community, and is like actually able to speak in English and give people the real like facts about what's going on in Eastern Ukraine. That's just another example of like just the absurdity of like this guy's like he's like an older baby boomer who's out there fighting like these NATO-backed fascist Nazis on the front line, and they had him on Moderate Rebels recently. So hey, don't check that out, man. This guy is something else, man.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, what you about to say, Justin?
No. All I was gonna say is that like the charge of genocide, like I don't know if the term's been thrown around too casually or what, but like that used to come with like a level of scrutiny to where you take that shit so seriously because that charge is a serious charge.
Justin, I gotta stop you. Dr. Adrian Zenz. Dr. Adrian Zenz says it is factual. He's the only source. He believes in apocalyptic eschatology too. He's with radical anti-Semitism mixed in there.
How can genocide if like there's not people?
Mike. Dr. Adrian Zenz, Dr. Adrian Zenz says so, and then Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski and like David Ignatius and others repeat it. That's how.
How can it be genocide if like there's actually population growth amongst this group? I mean,
Justin, I'm tired of you being a propagandist for the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, honestly, I'm being obviously facetious, but this is the kind of like this is literally the kind of reactions you get. Like people that have been so brainwashed, thoroughly brainwashed.
I don't think LeBron James, when it comes to the China issue, it's like what I said, Mike. Like I don't think that it's that he knows who Adrian Zenz is, or is that like wrapped up in all this. I think it comes down to it's being smart enough to know that things are complex and that you don't understand them. And that is the opposite of kind of the American way, right? Is like the American way is we don't know shit about shit, but man, we can speak passionately and like powerfully about things we don't take the time to bother to understand. And it's like, I think that by him being silent, a lot of that comes down to that. It's just being 100%. Understanding that, you know what, I don't have answers. So don't like, you want me like, yeah. You want me to just come out
and we got hella problems in our own backyard, and I'm tired of like you said that like when Daryl Morey's dumbass like with his stupid tweet about Hong Kong doesn't thought, and this is a guy who's been totally apolitical, as Danny Haiphong explained so well his whole career, and then suddenly out of nowhere it's just like freedom for Hong Kong, and LeBron then is like, I mean, this dude like really messed stuff up for the NBA. I mean, it set like it put the whole league in a dilemma. Like the Chinese market like just loves basketball. I mean, like they are rabid NBA fans. I mean, it's like, and then not to mention the Chinese basketball leagues. There's like guys like, who remembers Tyler Hansbrough, like UNC, like the wild man. He's playing over in China for Shanghai. I mean, it's like we know about Stephon Marbury. We know Allen Iverson's had it's loved over there, but loved. I mean, Stephon Marbury is like a god in China. I mean, there's Danny Haiphong also told us like he's been to the Stephon Marbury Museum in Beijing. And it's like he literally is a museum for like for the kid from the kid from Coney Island, the sensation back in the day, and it's like this from New York City, like street baller who like went on to Georgia Tech for a year, and then everybody remembers Starberry. I mean, he was like a big deal, and then he found the whole second. Now he's a coach, in China.
Crazy. He doesn't have a museum. Do they have a museum up for him in Coney Island?
No, but they do in Beijing.
That's crazy.
China shows some love, man. I mean,
it brings up I mean, the same thing happens in film all the time, right? Like they'll talk about like edits made for the Chinese market. They'll talk about all this stuff, and it's like that's the most ironic thing about this and about living in a capitalist society is that you will sit here and go, oh man, that's so many people. We want their money. Like we want their engagement and we want their money. We want their eyes on our basketball. We want their eyes on our movies, and we want all this stuff. What's the greater thing? Do we make a little bit of concession to content, to get all the eyes on that money. It just, I mean, to me, it just like exemplifies like how gross capitalism will flex itself and bend itself in the mental gymnastics around, because ultimately, yeah, they want the money. That's it. They just, they want that money.
Well, maybe it's worth transitioning. We talked about fake slave labor in China that the U.S. imperialists are going to do. Let's talk about actual slave labor, which is collegiate athletics.
And last thing, just so y'all see real quick, this is like a few pictures of the museum there. Just and then we'll let Mike get on with it. There's Marbury right there, his Beijing uniform. More stuff there. Is son. There he is playing in China. I mean, it's like, it's the game. It's like love. The people, the love is real, and it's like, why throw all that away because of Daryl Morey? And it's like in fake genocide claims in the U.S. State Department, who suddenly, after like killing over 1 million, people, overwhelmingly mostly Muslims, and some Christians too in Iraq, they suddenly care about Muslims. They've destroyed Afghanistan, enabled the Taliban to come to power in the first place. When they were, because of arming them to the teeth, in the 80s to have them fight the Soviets. They created this monster, and this Max Blumenthal just documents prodigiously, and the management of savagery. This is they're literally chickens coming home to roost. All right, you can't. I'm not. Jeremiah Wright's not the only one who's got got dominion over that line. I mean, that's literally what it is, and so it's astounding. And LeBron, I love that he stand his ground on this. I don't think that it's so much that I think he knows that a lot of it's BS. I mean, having been over there, having seen things for your own, there's a lot of money to be made in this new Cold War, and the brinksmanship that's being built up. There always has to be a boogeyman in this country, and the fear over China's rise is real. But the idea that the U.S. can stop it with these ridiculous stories is, I think, actually going to backfire and lead to greater international solidarity with China, and it's not good for the American people. I mean, the American working class has much more to gain from international solidarity with Chinese workers than they do with going along with these bogus new Cold War narratives coming out of the Beltway and out of elitist think tanks that sit around and write these bullshit position papers and all that kind of jazz. So most of us know that on the left, but we can't forget that there are people that haven't heard this stuff, and it's important that we keep hammering this home. So I don't care if we sound like a broken record, honestly, because it's really important that keeps coming out. So anyways, I'll be quiet. Mike, go ahead and I'll pull some of this stuff up, share the screen.
No, 100%. No, I agree 100%. Let's talk about actual slave labor here in college athletics. So there's been this whole debate around the name, image, and likeness, which is kind of a BS breadcrumb approach coming from the NCAA as well as state, state governments, to allow collegiate athletes to be able to make money off their name, image, and likeness, which should have already been happening. Unfortunately, it's kind of taken a toll in which, the universities still essentially vet, all these opportunities. And in Georgia, it's shown that, at least 75% of what a student athlete gets, quote unquote, is going to go back to the school. So, they've used this name, image, and likeness, of course, to kind of get ahead of the game in regards to trying to stop collegiate athletes from unionizing. But I bring this point up.
So, Mike, you see on the screen here, could you kind of just summarize for the viewers what they're looking at here?
Jack Kemp.
No, Brian Kemp. Jack Kemp was Bob Dole's running mate in '96 in Buffalo.
Was he the Buffalo Bills QB?
Yeah, he was back in the day, and he also was the GOP vice presidential running mate of Bob Dole in '96.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Brian Kemp. He signed this bill into law. And just recently, Florida, last week, signed the bill into law. It was attached to this crazy kind of anti-trans athlete bill that we thought in Florida had died. They kind of brought it back and attached it to a charter school bill. and brought it back to life. You know, it was kind of crazy how, you know,
Mike, you're just. I feel like it's like most people around the country. They hear like you come on talking about like your Florida like legislative breakdown. And it's like you're just like reporting from like this like batshit
yo, that's
absurdity in the
what
USA. Like
it's really,
here's
it's
the
really,
dispatches.
it's really weird. It's like, you know, most of the folks I know, you know, I see on Twitter and stuff, they focus so much on federal politics, in which the Democrats are like the majority. And I guess a lot of folks I do know who talk about like politics are also from, you know, like states in which Democrats are the majority and are shitty, like they always are, and are like, you know, pathetic and all that shit. And Florida is always, the Democrats here just don't have any influence or power. You know what I'm saying? So they can't even be in a position to be powerful and shitty. It's such a right-wing Republican-led state that I'm here talking about bills like them passing an anti-trans bill. You know what I'm saying? That will bar trans women in high school sports from participating, and they would have to use their birth certificate with the gender assigned at birth, and only through that way could they verify their involvement in playing a sport. Attached in that bill, however, that they tried to pass last week or last Wednesday. So Florida session ended Friday, right? They passed this bill on Wednesday, but in that bill, they added a section in there which said that name, image, and likeness for collegiate athletes will start July 1st, 2022. It originally said 2021, you know. So what happened? People got really pissed off. So Florida State transfer from UCF QB, he probably won't start. He'll compete for the starting position. Mackenzie Milton.
Mike, why don't I go ahead and just read a little bit from this and you react just so
Yeah.
people have it. All right, it's pretty short. So like, anyways, FSU quarterback outrage. He was a star at UCF, by the way. Had a great season. Took them to the Fiesta Bowl where they almost beat LSU in 2019. But anyways, he's at Florida State now. And Florida's lawmakers delay student athletes profiting from name, image. The measure still has to be signed by Governor Ron DeSantis, who championed the student athlete name, image, and likeness issue. But it goes, Florida lawmakers have passed a bill. This is from the Tallahassee Democrat, the main paper in Tallahassee, the capital of Florida. Passed a bill that's caught the ire of many student athletes, including FSU quarterback Mackenzie Milton, as well as head coach Mike Norvell. Florida was one of the first states to pass a law allowing college athletes to profit off their name, image, and likeness, NIL. Measure passed late Wednesday, however, includes a provision that delays the 2020 law's effective date for a full year to like July 1, 2022. This is where it gets rich right here. So according to State Senator Travis Hudson, holy crap, I know that guy.
Do you?
He's related to I've like, holy crap. His brother was one of my high school classmates at Bowles, and they're like, I've partied at their house in high school, and they're like really rich. Anyways, I apologize. Let's get back on track. I wasn't expecting that. All
told me this last week.
We did not want our student athletes, if this law went into effect, to start profiting off NIL and potentially lose scholarships from the NCAA. Well, the NCAA doesn't give you a scholarship. The school does, first of all, dumbass. Yeah. But all right, told Sports Illustrated on Thursday. We decided to do a 1-year hold, he added. It was an abundance of caution. Oh, appreciate it, buddy. We want our kids to profit from the NIL, and that's something we're passionate about, but not at the chance they could lose the right to play. Nonetheless, Milton, like many players, wasn't happy about the delay of the bill. Mackenzie Milton goes to Twitter and says, "So when will the time actually come? When will the time actually come? College athletes can truly use their own name to help benefit themselves and their loved ones, not just the NCAA and universities. It's comical at this point. Let the kids play and let the kids get paid." He goes, "Are we serious right now?" And he's got a picture of the bill here, and it's at the part highlighted that we were alluding to. The little black line in a bill with more than 70 pages that continue to screw all these athletes. Make it make sense. You can't.
So maybe we ended up
hashtag not NCAA property, of course. All right. So boom.
Nate, what ended up happening is Miami College, head coach Manny Diaz.
University of Miami can't be confused with Miami University, which is in Ohio.
I'm just sure nobody's
Ben Roethlisberger's alma mater.
I'm sure no Red Owl alumni, is watching this like.
They were the Redskins, and then they were the Redskins, and then now they're the Red Hawks. By the way, so anyways, I'm sorry, man. My bad. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Ben Roethlisberger's alma mater.
Yeah.
My bad. I'm a nerd, man. I'm in sports. I apologize.
But no, it was what ended up happening is Manny Diaz retweeted it and basically, agreed with Mackenzie Milton. And then, of course, Florida State University head coach Mike Norvell does the same. He backs his players. And what happened the next day, legislators on the second to last day of session spent 4 hours hammering this out and changing it. So now, of course, name, image, and likeness for Florida collegiate athletes is going to start in 2021, not 2022. And that's pretty wild how powerful, like, the voice of athletes actually, using that voice and then making their coaches get behind it. You know what I'm saying? Like the university itself was essentially doing like activism.
Yeah,
to benefit the players. I think that shows.
Well, it shows how the dynamics have changed, right?
Yeah.
And the power that's there,
and how activism works. I mean, let's not forget Mike Norvell. I don't know if y'all know this. So I played a freshman year, like 1 year of ball. Before I went to South Carolina at a school called Presbyterian College, and it was like, they're Division I FCS, but it was like the last year. We were transitioning from D2 to Division I FCS at the time, and my body like transformed that year. And that year we had like the best. We won our conference and like had a 10-1 regular season. Had a first round bye in the NCAA playoffs and played Central Arkansas in that first round. And it's going to blow your mind, Mike, but the best player on the other team we played in the first round, we played Central Arkansas, was none other than wide receiver Mike Norvell, a redshirt senior, or I think a senior for the Central Arkansas Bears. And another fun fact is that was circa the time that it would have been like a few months prior to that he did that summer, basically. That he was working at a camp in Dallas, and the kids kind of did that as a joke. They wanted to braid it, younger kids. That's what I hear, at least. But that's at least the story. Central Arkansas was actually the only opponent of North Dakota State this last season, because of COVID, and that was the only game Trey Lance, the third overall pick in the NFL draft last week, actually got to play last year, was against Central Arkansas in Fargo. So, anyways, I digress, but that's my little. I'm connected to Mike Norvell, on two different levels there: the Florida State connection and that game. Yeah.
And what's the status of Georgia's? Bill, yeah. So I think one of the things that is really frustrating is the amount of people who claim a political involvement. They claim a political sect. They're highly active. I'm a political person. But again, I think we know a lot of those people don't read past a headline, and they don't read a bill past the symbolism that's with a bill. And, this extends to, this literally in Georgia, right? Just people not reading. But also we're seeing this a lot with the shit with Biden and the TRIPS bill, right? It's like today Twitter blew up because apparently Biden caved to some pressure and he's going to support a TRIPS bill, not the TRIPS bill, but a version of the TRIPS bill. And again, nobody's read it. So like you see over Twitter, like Twitter would have you believe today, like if you were on the timeline at all, that like the vaccine's going to go everywhere and everything's going to be all right because Biden decided to like hold up to what he said, but nobody's read it yet. Same with like this, right? Like you have this bill in Georgia that's going to go ahead and make sure that name, image, and likeness is secure and put in. But read the damn thing and it only took a few people reading it to start passing around that up to it's like 74.99% of the name, image, and likeness money goes into a pool that the university controls and not those players. And it goes to like the level of political, involvement, the level of political action that people want to put out there is so fucking little.
Yeah.
That it doesn't go beyond like, I'm a part of this sect and I'm a part of this sect. I don't have to do shit, and I'll never do shit past that one point.
Justin,
it's gross, man.
It is gross. And I got to interject just real quick because, like, look at the optics here. First of all, Brian Kemp, just complete shitbag. The guy that behind all the voter suppression shit in Georgia. Even before that, I mean, I've been following the way he beat Stacey Abrams a couple of years. They're just complete massive voter suppression. It also reminds me, Mike, I meant to react to this earlier, a point about how Florida people, like, it should be pointed out that Florida's not as like right-wing and reactionary as you would think. The reason it is, in terms of the way political power is wielded, is not unsimilar to the way it happens in many states, where the legislature, every 10 years, they're able to like redraw the districts, and they gerrymander the hell out of it, and they put like they have these non-contiguous districts with like, and make sure they're like overwhelmingly black, so that like it basically just totally takes away the power, the black vote, by putting them all in one district. I mean, and you look at the maps of some of these districts. I mean, I know Mike's like seen this stuff. It's just it's a completely nonsensical, and it's like, so they're able to like use their power to gerrymander, then deal with a really weak Democratic Party in Florida to like essentially make it have the state legislated in a way that does not match up with like the way in which with the demographics of the state. And in Georgia, we see this is at the University of Georgia. These are all white guys here, big UGA boosters and all that. If you have all these guys, like, look at the people in this picture supporting something, it's not that radical, man. I mean, it needs to get signed, right? I mean, it needs to get signed. I mean, it's like it's better than nothing, and it's like, but it's a chance for them to store like political points on something that's like they're not really having to give up anything, but yet they're sitting here able to like do this photo op at right outside of Sanford Stadium at the University of Georgia and present themselves as if they're doing something to really help the overwhelmingly black labor that makes up University of Georgia football. Like, so it's disgusting, like you just said, Justin. And I'll be quiet. But
I mean, what I say, I think it just brings up. There's a lot of different. I mean, Georgia, of course, you got like really one like grade A, college football program, being, Georgia Bulldogs in Athens. I mean, Georgia Tech is a big program in a big conference, but
it's not comparable though. I mean, because Mike, with us being like, from North Florida, it's like being from North Florida, South Georgia. That article I'm sharing is from Jacksonville, and just let you know that Jacksonville, the media market for Jacksonville includes Southeast Georgia. That's why like the Ahmaud Arbery stuff that happened last year in Brunswick, Georgia was like local news in Jacksonville. So anyways, it's like
as opposed to in Florida, where you have like really three major programs that have all won national titles in the last 25, 30 years and have a higher amount of stature. I mean, two of which are so-called, preeminent universities, being Florida State University and University of Florida. Of course, University of Florida being the most highly considered out of all of them.
Right.
When those players, are able to leverage that, what I'm saying, they do have the opportunity to affect legislation,
no doubt. Yeah, and University of Miami being a private school, a little different, but their history, it speaks for itself. I mean, 5 national titles. Really, if it weren't for that crazy phantom pass interference call, they'd have 6, and that's, that would be as many as Florida State and Florida have combined, right? So it's really wild in that respect. I think it's also worth noting here. I mean, we mentioned about Georgia Tech, Mike, and I mean the thing is with Georgia Tech, think of it as like they're in Atlanta. It's an engineering school. It's like a school where people, they have students from all over the world. I mean, but you go through the state of Georgia and you just do not see Georgia Tech flags flying. You see red Georgia G's all over the place in rural Georgia. I mean, everywhere. So, I mean, really, when you talk about Georgia, their rivals are Florida and Auburn. I mean, those are the two, Auburn and Georgia. That's like the Deep South's oldest rivalry, they call it. They've been playing since like the 1890s, like, every year. So like that's the thing. Georgia Tech's a big rival, but yeah, it's just not even really comparable. It's just a different dynamic. It's like
I do like Georgia. Like in terms of a quick digression, Georgia Tech, like their stadium is literally in the middle of Atlanta. It's pretty lit. You know what I'm saying?
It is. It's a nice spot. Bobby Dodd Stadium there. It is, and it's and it's a great school. I mean, it's like if you can go there and play ball. I mean, I've always told guys I've coached and kids. I think it's all right for high school to say kids because if they're under 18, I think it's kind of I think it's patronizing when you refer to college athletes that way.
Yeah.
It's one thing though. It's like if it's like it depends on who the person is saying it to. Like you're someone who's played ball, is actively engaged in coaching kids, and they're just like literally meaning it in the sense of like they have that kind of relationship. But when like media members like say that and like don't even know these young people and their work ethic and all that stuff. It does depend on who's saying it, I think. But yeah, it's no doubt. Anything y'all want to say on this? I want to transition. I know Justin before we got to wrap up here before too long, but to keep on pace with our NFL. Examination of NFL owners and who these 32 shitbags are and their relationship to the U.S. ruling class. And I think it's about time the Detroit Lions are put in the crosshairs and the descendants, the posterity of Henry Ford, right? William Clay Ford, the owner of the Detroit Lions. There's so much in Detroit. Maybe Justin can talk about. I mean, I know. I was talking Max Blumenthal's wife with the Gray Zone, Anya Parampils from Michigan, and we were all talking about just the way you talk about white flight on steroids, and that's really what Detroit is. I mean, you have Ford Field right next to Comerica Park, the homes of the Lions and Tigers respectively, and it's like people just come in, go to the parking garages, boom, come from places like Warren and all these suburbs, even Ann Arbor farther out, but and then just zoom right the hell out of there when the game's over. And we know about the history about Detroit and all. The media actually loves doing stories. The decline of Detroit and what's behind it, and all these resurgent stories and all this stuff.
What's fascinating about Detroit is the Coleman Young, who's the mayor of Detroit for 20-something years, and of course media likes to paint him as so corrupt and whatnot. He was very close to the Communist Party and radicals. He went after the Detroit Police Department and special units within them so much he was able to he stayed in power for a long time because a lot of black Detroit people supported him, which of course led to, like you said, Nate, a white flight, away from the state and away from the city.
No doubt.
It is.
Let's turn it over to Justin now, and maybe are you ready? Or all right? I'm born ready. All right.
No, I am definitely ready.
So Mike and I are gonna enjoy this kind of as fans, like the rest of y'all. All right. I will sit here and just kind of put up some stuff on some articles and just kind of peruse as Justin's talking. But other than that, you got the floor.
I mean, before you get into William Clay Ford's ownership of the Lions and the Ford Foundation and we can get into where they
wait, never mind. Before you go on, let Mike mention the Ford Foundation real quick and the role they play in activism. Because Mike, I know you know a lot about that. I haven't been involved and seen a lot of how would you describe real quick before Justin gets started the role the Ford Foundation plays in terms of trying to because one thing activists or the people on the ground need money, but you feel like it creates a compromising effect on organizations, or is it or it's able to kind of traverse that and kind of just use the money for their own ends? What do you think?
I think originally, the intent of these liberal philanthropy foundations in regards to their approach to movement organization was to, they traditionally do play a very pacifying kind of more liberal intent towards demilitarizing a lot of grassroots organizations due to the fact that your money is contingent on programming and coaching from the Ford Foundation and what they feel is, a good strategy or, help, they want to help with that. There are groups, that I know of that do, pretty solid work. They're just so, you have a social justice nonprofit. The Ford Foundation is all over the nonprofit world. Really hard to avoid. historically they have played that role, and like these foundations do play that role. But it always is, of course, reflective on the leadership of the organization. You know, that these foundations fund, because if you have, you know, quite typically, if you have like weak leadership or you have liberal leadership that is going to, you know, listen to a liberal philanthropy group's plan that probably challenge, you know, or do anything that'll be radically transformative. I mean, you're gonna.
Oh,
so yeah, they definitely play a very, you know, historically they played a very demilitarizing influence in the movement.
All right, so appreciate it.
Yeah.
Back to Justin.
You know, so real quick, I mean, and I'm sure this is going to lead to some tangents, but you know, real quick, Detroit's history, you know, and with white flight and with white race, you know, there's so many factors, but at the same time, like, I hate the argument of like, well, it's economics meets this. It's racism. Detroit's history is racism, and Detroit's history is racism in a unique position because of the time. You know, Henry Ford was not, I mean, by any means, not even like a modern centrist liberal. I mean, this is a man who openly supported Hitler. So, I mean, it's not like he was in any way trying to do good work. But, you know, what he needed employees. And when you need employees at that time in Americans' history, that means that your hiring is colorblind because you need bodies. You need bodies to assemble. And I don't think he saw the repercussion of that in from his racist framework. I don't think he saw where that would go. And where that took Detroit. Not only was it the fastest growing, I mean, it's the fastest growing city in the United States for 40 straight years, and one of the fastest growing cities in the world. Detroit, like, absolutely boomed. And because you need workers and you'll hire anybody from that racist framework that he had, you will build something that didn't happen in most places in the country, and that is that you built a black middle class. And a black middle class will always do that thing to white fragility and to white racist brains, which is it actually makes them confront their own shitty stereotypes and their superiority. And when you have black success then goes against the idea of supremacy. It's the same thing that happened, you know, and again, I don't want to get off on this side tangent. The same thing that happened during Reconstruction, right? Like when you have the South and you have the Southern whites saying, sure, you want to have your own, you want to be free? Cool, you'll fail. You want to have your own cities and your own businesses? Cool, you'll fail because I've been told I'm better and that you can't succeed. And then it actually works and they succeed because fucking duh, you know, and then you have to go tear it all back down. You have to burn it all down. You have to go burn their towns. Lynchings go back up. And that's exactly what a Detroit black middle class did to that white framework. Next thing you know, you had a house in the suburbs that somebody who you thought you were better than is now moving next door. You have bars, restaurants. Motown comes from a black middle class. It all comes from when you pay people well and they're paid well, they can actually enjoy other ventures in this life. They can actually do other things. But that other thing that you're going to do is going to confront that white racist brain with everything that they think is correct. And they can't fucking take it. It's an overload. White flight happens. The riots happen. I mean, the riots really come from the police cracking down on black-owned businesses over and over and over and over again until they said, we've had enough. Like, shit burns, and shit burns now. And that is something that is unique to Detroit versus, say, Chicago, versus, say, Boston, where you had large black communities that came north thinking that they'd find solidarity, didn't, but they also didn't find jobs. Detroit was that one off where it was, no, there are jobs and there's a ton of it. And again, I don't think Henry Ford foresaw that happening, because we know what kind of a racist piece of shit he was. Again, I mean, the man's written several passages in books where he praised Hitler. So I mean, we're not splitting hairs here when it comes to Henry Ford. He was awful. But his company grew so fast and needed people. It created a unique situation in Detroit to confront. And, you know, in a perfect world, it should have been the opportunity to go, hey, we can all achieve, holy shit, we're not different. But it wasn't. It was the opposite, because that white framework will push back. It'll burn its own backyard before it'll accept that they were wrong. So anyway, I just wanted to get that out real quick about Detroit and Henry Ford before we get on to his son. So Detroit, as a football team, won its only NFL championship in 1957. That's pre-merger. So again, they never won a Super Bowl, but they did win an NFL championship. In 1964, William Clay Ford bought the team. They went 7-5-2. We talked about this, I think, last week, Nate, when the last time we were live streamed. I put it up to the chat for someone to guess how many winning seasons they've had since then. Overall, Mike, I think
what was it? 9?
I think 15.
15.
Total.
All right.
Since 1957. This is an unsuccessful franchise. I mean, it is.
Justin, just to jump in real quick, it's like it makes people feel like if you're a Jaguars fan or a Jets fan or a Browns fan a little bit better, because at least, like, you know, the Jets have been to AFC Championship games, the Jaguars have been to 3 AFC Championship games, and we only had a team in Jacksonville since 1995, and even the Cleveland Browns. Well, I don't know. That's actually a pretty good comparison, but like the level of like awfulness, the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
I mean, a few they won like one playoff game with Barry Sanders, maybe. What was it? 1 or 2?
Yeah. It's bad. And the thing that really, like, from a football, so I mean, before we get into the Ford Foundation and the NED shit, you know, let's just look at this from a football perspective. They're bad people. The Fords are bad people, but they're bad owners on top of that. Like, just from a football perspective, they're bad at this too. They have tried everything at the wrong time. Like, and it is, so many fan bases can say we suck, but we've never had a coach that was accomplished. The Lions hired former Super Bowl winners. The Lions have hired former national championship in the collegiate level. I mean, they've had the great coordinator. They've had the coordinator on the rise. They've had the guru. I mean, they have had everybody, and they still can't win. And one of the things that really leads to that is there's one consistent from 1964 when William Clay Ford takes over all the way up to his daughter, who now runs the team. And that is that accountants run the show. They let accountants run this football team. They're going to run it from an accounting standpoint, end of story. They're not fans. They don't want this team to succeed because they're Detroit and they have some sort of pride. They want fucking Ford on the building and they want Ford on the field. This is advertising. They run this as though it's a billboard. Those players are billboards. I mean, they got the WCFs. I mean, they are billboards, and they run this team that way. It is all about money. It's all about that end of day. And it makes me think back to that baseball comment earlier where, you know, Jeter said, I can run a shitty baseball team. No one can come to the games. Nobody, you know, we cannot win, and nobody can come to the games, and we still turn a profit. And when you let accountants run your football team this long and you've only had 15 winning seasons, something tells me, and you've never relinquished, you've never sold, you've never done anything. You have the money. You're making enough. You know, I mean, who knows? It wouldn't put it past me if the Fords own a second company that like owns the right to the Ford name. So they like wind up paying themselves to put Ford Field on it. You know what I mean? Like that kind of shit.
Justin, are there any other teams that have like the owner's initials? I mean, I know that the Patriots. You're right. The House family. Yeah. GSH. Right.
Yeah.
At least he was a coach, though. You know, the actual team. I mean, golly. I mean, this is crazy. It's like, I know the Patriots in 2011 had MHK on there. It's the year they lost to the Giants the second time in the Super Bowl for Bob Kraft's wife's initials. But that was just one year.
Exactly. You do it for a little bit, but like when William Clay died, this has been there. This is a staple. This is part of the uniform. And to pay homage to a man who's led you to, at that point, 13 winning seasons since 1964, because they've had 2 winning seasons since he died. So, he doesn't get to claim credit over those. I mean, the level of narcissism, like the rich bougie bullshit that this family has. This family, by the way, William Clay's wife has a surname. Anybody wants to guess it? Because they decided to merge another automotive empire.
All right. It's the GM family.
No. That's a bridge too far. But
that's a little. Yeah, I don't know. You have the Maras and the Rooneys.
Yeah, the Maras and the
together,
Rooneys.
Right? Yeah.
No, Firestone. So he married a Firestone. So you're merging.
Now, are they related?
Firestone,
No, I know Firestone owned the guy with Reebok. Is he related to that Firestone family, or a totally different guy?
I don't know on the Reebok. I didn't go that deep.
Yeah. All right. Whatever. It's not important anyway. Go ahead.
But yeah, so
I gotta slide off, fellas.
Yeah.
All right, Mike.
We
appreciate it, brother. Yep.
It is again. So from a football standpoint, they're bad at this, and they're bad at this by and maybe it's being good at it. Like it's I don't know, addition by subtraction. I don't know, because again, they have to be profitable. Why would one team, why would you stay owning it? And for this level of success or not success that they've had, the coaching carousel. I mean, I don't need to go through these names, but I mean, Shula was there at one point. I mean, come on, like they've had everybody. They've tried everything at just the wrong time, right? Because again, when you put accountants in charge, they're always going to funnel it through the lens of the financial decision. So do you get the right person at the right time, or do you just get the right person at the right price? Like I said, from a sports perspective, we could go back and forth all night on the Lions and the bad choices that they've made. But now let's get back to the Fords and their real dream, right? Which is the Ford Foundation. Now, Mike mentioned a little bit about how they're involved in so many grassroots movements. They're involved, like their money touches so many movements. And sometimes that money, broken clocks for like 2 times a day. So sometimes that money can funnel to a foundation or to an organization that might do some good. But let's talk about the biggest one they fund that does no good at all. And that is the NED. They are one of the primary funders of the NED. Really quick, do you want to go off on the NED really quick? Do you want to?
Yeah, I have to real quick. So the National Endowment for Democracy might as well just be named the CIA. I mean, they are a disgusting organization. There's, I really want to direct everyone to a great episode of Radio War Nerd with Mark Ames and John Dolan, where they break down the history of the NED's development. You think of the name, I mean, who could be against, right? Democracy.
The National Endowment for Democracy. It sounds so.
Right.
Yeah.
And you think about this, and it's like Nomiki Konst, I think she's not associated with them, but one of these, like a lot of these, like lefties, pseudo lefties get involved and get grants from groups like that. I think she was involved with a group that was doing like work in Libya that ultimately had ties to regime change. But whatever, that is a digression. The point is with the NED, also Max Blumenthal, Ben Norton have done a lot of great work on them. But I really, the Radio War Nerd episode on them, I will share that in the chat. Check that out if you get a chance. It's amazing. But the history basically is they realized that they couldn't just officially do these coups like under the CIA name anymore. They it would lead to a loss of credibility if media organizations were just after you had the what was it the Church Commission coming out in I believe the 70s, where they basically exposed the Operation Mockingbird to the planned CIA stuff with it. That the NED was a great way to to be a front for that. People know that throughout the world. There's no distinction in places that are oppressed by imperialism and have been in the crosshairs of it, regime change especially. Efforts. They know the NED is CIA. So I mean, we could get into a lot of detail, but yeah, the Radio War Nerd episode they did was amazing, and some of the work at the Gray Zone exposing the NED is phenomenal too. So definitely check it out.
I mean, but at the same time, a good name, right? I mean, they're
crafty imperialists, man. Crafty imperialists. Yeah.
What is research says over 70% of people don't read past a headline. So that same research is going to say that over 70% of people aren't going to read past your dumbass name. And if your name sounds, if you're the International Coalition of Cute Kittens, I don't know what just happened.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I hit a button. Maybe I hit a button by mistake. All right, whatever.
No, but the point is that right. So like, if you're the International Coalition of Cute Kittens, no one's going to read your charter, and then what your charter is that you kill cute kittens. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to win on your name alone, and that's kind of the point, right? With these alphabet soup think tanks, is they are all based off of this naming convention, which is sound innocent, sound progressive, sound like something you'd push. Turns out they're usually the anti of what their name is. So yeah, the Fords love the NED. The Fords have been supporting the NED for 20 plus years. I mean, like, since their inception. They are, it's like the opposite of when I did the Paul Allen breakdown, right? Where it's like, here you have the richest NFL owner and he just seems disengaged. Like, the man didn't even donate politically often. Like, he was just kind of like what real lethargic money looks like, right? Like, he's just apathetic in all ways, right? He just didn't want to participate. The Fords are only like the 8th richest family in Michigan alone, and they are so absolutely involved in so many things, right? It's like when you talk about whenever you've hyped this series, right, on the NFL owners, when you've talked about like who these people are with American centers of power, the Fords are right up there at the top of being that quintessential billionaire family that really is involved in forming policy, because they are funding the groups that affect millions of people and millions of lives. And by funding the NED, have helped with what, really, with what, Henry started, right? Which is actually supporting, let's see, we've got death squads in South America. We've got, all the shit.
No, go ahead. Go down the laundry list. It's all right.
I mean, the NED has backed, currently they're backing everything that we're saying about China. So the NED is one of the loudest voices, which still comes back to our theological boy who's just making all this shit up, Adrian Zenz. But like, the NED is a huge pusher of the movement towards coup in China. The NED is a huge backer of regime change in Venezuela. They back the Honduran coup. I mean, I honestly, I want to list them all, but it's also gross. Like, it's just gross what they do. It's gross, the list of shit that we're complicit in. But I mean, the Fords are fundamental in that. And that is the point. Like, that is the true root of American elite power, are in these groups that have such sway, and that they can be cited so the CIA can't be cited. They can be cited so an Adrian Zenz can't be cited. You just back it all up to the National Endowment for Democracy because it sounds innocent, it sounds sweet, sounds like something we should all support. So I got to trust them. All they want to do is endow democracy. It's in their name.
No doubt.
Yeah. So, really, that's the Fords. I mean, you have a family history of racism, who actually did a good thing inadvertently, again, by just needing to exploit labor, but it did build a black middle class, but we saw how that wound up. You know, and that's, I mean, I guess you could say that that's the best thing a Ford's ever done, is help create a black middle class, but that also destroyed a city.
Well, what do you mean? They brought us the Model T. It was the imagination of Henry Ford. I mean, it was like, without that like engineering prowess of Henry Ford, like remember the great man theory is just a fact, right? It's not like a theory. So it's like, without these great men like making history, and then these like. And then you have all these little workers that get together, and then they start complaining and wanting all these like free gifts, right? I mean, it's like, why aren't they grateful that they were given like this wonderful design that they got to work on just assembling and putting together? You know, I mean, when are people going to have appreciation for the makers? You know, and I gotta stop. I'm done. But anyways, like
next to war and weapons of war. The internal combustion engine is one of the most destructive forces we have created in the last 100 years.
Why, come on, man. Like, I mean, why are you such a cynic, Justin? You and all this communist propaganda.
It's just, I mean, and I'm a car person. Like it's undeniable. Like, the internal combustion engine was a horrible mistake. And what it's done, and what it's done.
So we have like just pushed forward with the steam engine. Yeah.
I mean, where would steam be if we'd put half the fucking? You know what I mean? Like that we put into lighting gasoline on fire.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, think about too. I mean, the amount of money that's spent making sure that every single member of Congress knows it's the end of their career, basically, if they go, everyone who even remotely talks about like getting us, not just, I mean, all right, getting us off fossil fuels and stuff is one thing, but like, we've had the ability, if we had the political will to make it happen, if it wasn't for so much institutional power being behind the oil industry, to like make moves towards renewables for decades now. I mean, and it's like, but the reality here is that, you know, it's just that like you have the sheer force of like the industry just exerting its will in Washington over these people. And that's why it's just such a joke that not just the name National Endowment for Democracy, but this whole country is called a democracy. It's a bastardization of what the very term even means. If you want to, which is hard, it's sort of an abstraction in some ways, because how do you like actually pin down like what democracy means in the context of this world now? I mean, it literally means like, you know, the most engagement possible from like, people's voices, like in people's like, you know, if we had democracy, we would have a national health system, right? Because like it would mean the popular will wins out of the people. But we don't live in a democracy. We live in an oligarchy that whereas unlike Russia, which is like, you know, not like an imperialist country, it's a country that certainly will fiercely defend its interest, and it has, you know, internal contradictions, but is not going around the world or starting wars in places like Iraq or bankrolling the Saudis to like, you know, bomb Yemen and destroy the place, or supporting Mujahideen like groups and actively being allied with Al Qaeda in Syria to like using Caesar sanctions like to prevent Syria from even being able to start rebuilding, keeping Venezuela under just a complete like just medieval like siege, using the vaccine wars and shutting off the ability of countries that are non-compliant in any way, shape, or form to receive them. And it's like the empire is like really flexing its like most like disgusting and just not even like attempting to play the soft power game really more. It's just like, but yet the corporate media, of course, is part of that, and you're never going to hear really a critical analysis of the way that's exerted. In fact, it's just been a really constant, like, you know, other than Fox News and the right wing media, which we expect, like, I mean, the gushing over Joe Biden and like what a great job he's doing. It's just astounding, really. I mean,
today alone with this TRIPS bullshit, like, Watching.
What's the acronym? What's the acronym for that? By the way,
I honestly don't. It's the intellectual property.
Right. Yeah.
It's the intellectual like the idea is that this TRIPS was written over a year ago by other nations, and he refused to adopt it. And then today, they said they're going to support a TRIPS like. That's the word, a TRIPS like bill that's going to open this up. And everybody fucking exploded. I say everybody. I mean, our comrades didn't, but I mean, like the fucking liberal left exploded with like Joe Biden's going to do what he said he'd do, and it's like we haven't even read it yet. We don't know. Like they're going to change. They're going to change everything because it's not the TRIPS. It's not the TRIPS agreement. It's a TRIPS like agreement, which means he's going to write like there. It's going to be a negotiation and things are going to come to the table and Big Pharma is still going to fucking win. Like, there you go. It's not the TRIPS agreement. So I'm also going to have to roll, but I do have a closing thought if you don't mind, Nate.
Go
and
for
that's
it.
About the Afghanistan thing. So I just want to throw out, a message for all the comrades. We're doing great posting work. We're doing great work trying to hold this administration to leaving Afghanistan. But one thing that I'm noticing when I'm seeing a lot of these posts is I'm seeing that it's being called the longest U.S. war or the longest U.S. occupation. And I just want to throw out there that the longest U.S. war in U.S. history are the Indian Wars fought right here to steal this very country. And that is also the longest occupation. So Afghanistan's actually the second longest war, second longest occupation. I'm just throwing it out there. I know that that's a little literal, but I've been seeing it a lot. Like we're ending the U.S.'s longest war. The Indian Wars went longer. Technically, they are still ongoing if you count, border town violence, police violence on reservations, all this shit. But the Indian Wars are the longest. And I'm saying Indian War because that's how they're colloquially, that is literally their name. But yeah, that is the longest U.S. war in occupation.
All right. So on that note, I think we can wrap. We've hit on the name, image, and likeness stuff, the exploitation of that by, bullshit politicians in Florida and Georgia and even California, Governor Gavin Newsom, everyone's favorite, just, I don't know. He just looks like American Psycho, right? Christian Bateman. I mean, like, Christian Bale, and I was about to combine it. I literally said Christian Bateman, Patrick Bateman, Christian but
I love it.
I don't know, man. He's always good. He was married to Don Trump Jr.'s wife before. All right. So like Kimberly Guilfoyle, that just disgusting, whatever you want to call her. I mean, she's awful. She's been one of the worst people for a long time. And anyway, so yeah, Don Trump Jr., she is married to her now for whatever it's worth. Gavin, so we've hit on name, image, and likeness. We've hit on the Detroit Lions, the Ford family, Ford Foundation, the NED. We started off. I really shout out again to Miguel Garcia, Frank, Gertie, and I hope I'm not butchering his name, but the book he wrote, is really amazing. I mean, it's like in the role. And it makes you think the role Texas has played in developing sport culture in the U.S. from the Cowboys, Houston Oilers. Think of that name, all right? The connection to oil. They became the Tennessee Titans. After they moved to played 1 year in Memphis in '97 as the Tennessee Oilers, 1 year in Nashville in '98 is the Oilers, where they played at Vanderbilt for a year and then became the Titans. And literally their first year had the Music City Miracle happen against Buffalo, which was a forward pass. I was at the AFC Championship game a week later in Jacksonville as a 13-year-old and saw the Jaguars up 14-10 at halftime, close after a 14-2 season, having beaten the Dolphins and sent Dan Marino into retirement the week before. 62-7, but could not beat the Titans. Steve McNair, Eddie George, Steve McNair, rest in peace, of course. That was a really good team that year. And they went on and gave the Rams everything they could, the greatest show on turf, everything they bargained for. Anyways, moving on. Yeah, what else did we hit on, man? So, but Del Garcia stuff, with with also the interview of Andrew Marinus, who we're gonna have on the show here soon. I need to reach back out to him, but we've talked about that. Hopefully, Justin, you can.
Yeah, no, I've reached out to him. I've reached out to him. We're just trying to find time.
All right, cool.
That interview will get done. Our schedules are, it's different, right? Like, people forget, like on this podcast, we're not just professional podcasters. We all have real jobs, and he's a writer, so he's always like, I'm free at this time during the day, and I'm like, oh, I got to tell my boss that I got to go interview this writer.
Well, I mean, thankfully, in we're crazy, world of New Jersey politics and Jersey City, where I work, there's reopening has gotten to where we go till like June 29th this year where I work, and then we don't start back till September. That's not the way it is. I think it is in basically cold weather states. People want to hold on to those like Labor Day is a big tradition, but around the country, those of you who don't know, the reason that schools they've been moving the start date up is they want to get more instructional time before standardized testing, right? That's like the whole thing. So it's only a few pockets that have really resisted that, and it's a cultural type of thing. But anyways, the school is being dismissed every day up in this area now at 12:45, so they don't serve lunch there. It's like people I talk to that teach in like Florida and stuff, they can't believe it. It's like they were forced back in August, and full on, no exemptions, anything. So crazy stuff going on in the world for sure. But I mean, I'll have some more time off in the afternoons now than usual. But I really want you to be able to do that interview, Justin. I feel like that'd be a good one for it. Not that, I mean, the baseball aspect to it, and just but obviously we gotta be able to find a time to make it work.
Absolutely.
So, but when you don't have time during the day, and you're not just like your job isn't reading and getting to write all the time and create content. It's now for me, once we hit July and August, I will have more time off, and I am I'm really now I'm getting settled in this new place, and despite the root canal today and some really crazy stuff I won't go into right now, but things are starting to settle down a little bit. It's been a wild last few weeks, but and with that, we're gonna start getting just starting to write more on Patreon. Different Danny Hyphon publishers just start straight on there too. Look, I mean, with that, like, you can donate $1, man, a month. I'm not like someone who's putting tiers on there and all that. Just like I want, but does every little bit helps just in terms of being able to get to doing this more, and I think what we were doing up until about 2.5-3 weeks ago, when kind of a lot of stuff kind of hit the fan, we're going to get back to that schedule and also some more, because I really want to start writing more, and and hopefully that. And then another thing too, anybody, man, anyone that listens to us a lot, like if you see clips you like, I mean, I got to get better at this. I mean, it's like it just takes me a long time. Like, for whatever reason, I get frustrated. Maybe it's ADHD, and like maybe the computer sometimes I don't know, but I end up like going through stuff, then I'll find a link to something else, and then and the process takes long. But getting those clips isolated is a big thing that'll help us like get the word out, and get more people that don't have time to tune in to or something, pushing 2.5 hours now to get an idea of what we're doing. So I gotta get more clips isolated, get those out, tweet those out. But anything y'all can do to help the show, even if it's not Patreon, man, it's like just if you find a clip you like, just like tweet it out. That would be appreciated as much as anything. All right, so. And we'll do the same as we go forward. So appreciate it. And with that, it's a wrap. So y'all be well. We will be back next Thursday at 8. We might have a surprise stream come in one of these days. In the meantime, possibly this weekend, possibly Tuesday night. We'll see. It'll be short notice, though, but I will give some kind of notice. And other than that, be well. And until next time, keep fighting. And, just try to enjoy life a little bit too. All right.
Absolutely.
We're out.
Bye, everybody.
Peace.